Yeah, so you don't accidentally say some wild shit.
Nah, just rip it. You know
like,
us.
Go live. Just hold on one moment. And what I said to him was,
Not now, Chief.
hold on. We're doing whiskey tonight. Come to find out.
Are we?
Appreciate you guys being here. We are going to have Bill on in just a minute from Four Gate. And we're going to go through some Four Gate stuff. I asked patrons earlier today if they had questions about Four Gate for Bill, for us on Four Gate, any of that kind of stuff. And we should have plenty of time to go through a bunch of those questions with Bill tonight.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so real quick, on time. Irish had maybe 1 minute over, and we were fucking here.
No, your clock's fast, dude. It was 9 o'clock when I pushed go live.
Yeah, get your shit together, dude.
Clock.
So, Kyle Slusher, by the way, your package is on the way, buddy. It is in the mail, and it is on the way. Just so you know. And if Quogan's in here, yours is on the way as well. All right.
Oh, yeah, he did stop at UPS today.
So, real quick, we're going to talk about Cigar Club tonight because Cigar Club's the sponsor of this live stream, as you can tell, since there's a logo in the bottom that corner of the screen. Cigar Club, as you guys know, if you don't know, if you do know, if you don't know, we're here to tell you. Cigar Club obviously runs a cigar subscription box. You can do multiple different kinds of subscriptions. They got customs. They got like sampler boxes they sell from time to time. They do collabs from time to time. We did one with them. I was like, I thought that was a cigar. But they also do like kind of customized to you cigar club or cigar boxes per every month.
Yeah, exactly. That
get 5 or 10,
3,
whatever
5,
the hell
or 10.
you want.
You can even gift subscriptions if you want. I've done it. It's great. People enjoy it a lot.
Yeah.
What you do, you get a little QR code on the back of your pamphlet. You scan it. You go in. You rate your cigars. You say, "Yay, I like that." No, I didn't. And they'll change the box and tailor it for you. I only did it 1 month, and now I get 5 sticks every month that I enjoy. It's fantastic. I urge you, if you are a cigar smoker, check it out. Use code Bourbon Junkie at checkout.
Yep.
30% off?
I believe so.
Or if you use BJ20 for the customs, you get 20% off your first month.
Yep.
There you go. I remembered things today.
But just so on top of that, the whole thing with Cigar Club is, listen, it's about to be springtime. That's got like tooth marks in it. That's weird.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's got a bear on it.
It does have a bear on it with a crown
that later. Who knows?
But yeah, listen, it's about to be springtime, which is like literally like spring and fall, like early fall.
We've already had
the best weather.
False spring. We're almost ready for third winter and then real spring.
Yeah, we have. Well, we got fake spring this week.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be 60 tomorrow.
Yep.
I'm sure another winter storm at some point in time, and then it'll be
third winter.
7.
Yep.
But yeah, needless to say, if you guys don't mind while you're here, hit the like button. Also, thank you to Cigar Club, as always, for working with the channel. Use those discount codes at checkout, like Sean said, to get you money off your first boxes. BJ20 for the customs, which is my favorite thing.
Oh, the last month custom, I'm a real big fan of.
Yeah, the customs are my favorite. And then Bourbon Junkies to get a discount on your first box of the Cigar Club normal subscription. So now, real quick, before we bring Bill on, we got to talk about one other thing that's later this week. And it's Sean being on Matt Madness.
It's Friday.
Now, last week on Matt Madness,
Dan barely won.
I put on what I like to call a clinic.
Oh, I've been taking my omeprazole.
I'm
getting ready for
certify
Friday.
me as a doctor.
No, that's not how that
I own
works.
that clinic. I started that one.
Hey,
clearly,
buddy, you can own a clinic, not be a doctor.
But in my case, I'm a doctor. I need people can gift doctorates.
PhDs, yes.
Same shit, different day, right?
Yeah, but like, so if you're on a plane and someone's having a heart attack and they're like, "Hey, is there a doctor on?"
I can't say no.
You don't fucking raise your hand. Like,
doctor.
yes, what's your doctorate? Philosophy.
No,
sit the fuck
he
down.
won one round of a whiskey competition. But needless to say, Sean is on Friday.
Yes,
and you're on with Sam and Bobby.
I am. It's going to be so much fun
for my whiskey show.
We haven't streamed with them in a while, so I'm excited to get in there and have Bobby beat my ass.
Yeah, I streamed with them while you were gone.
Yeah.
And Sam and Bobby are always like the best time. So Sean, Sam, and Bobby and Matt on Friday will be over on ADHD Whiskey for like round, I think 3 or 4 of Matt Madness. So, and then if Sean wins, this is even a little bit
it's
more
going to be fucking chaos.
If Sean wins, it's me, Sean, and Klein in round 2 for that part of the bracket.
We could just have it at the hut.
We definitely could. 100%.
Pure chaos.
For 100% also fact though. I did tell Sean that legally binding contract, verbally legally binding. If Sean loses to Sam, Sean's fired 100%.
I kind of just want to tank it now.
Well, here's the thing. You can work your job. You can work your way back in, right? You have to like redeem yourself. Like,
Okay.
I'm like the Savant Phoenix. I came from the ashes and scored 22 points, right?
You came from the asses, yes.
Sam doesn't give a fuck about whiskey.
Nope.
So if you lose to Sam, it's a huge problem. Now, Bobby last year laid down the law.
Yeah. He stomped it.
So Sean does have somebody there that does care and is good at this.
Mhm.
So, all right. So now that we've talked about the housekeeping things, there's a couple super chats that we're going to bring Bill on.
All right. First one, Red, Wild, and Boosted. How has your life changed since you went YouTube full time?
That's a very long answer.
Wow.
To a very short question.
Uh-huh.
It's way better.
Yes.
And a lot more things are being done because of it.
And then certain things happen and you want to kill yourself. You know?
In theory.
In theory, yeah.
In theory.
Not in real life or anything.
Adam, don't let us down Sean, our dark Lord and Savior, anyone but greed. Thanks for
I will do my best, Adam.
This is amazing, says Derek Weaver. Thumbs up. Also, finally signed up for Patreon. 15 was the highest tier I could get. Any plans of opening any of the higher tiers? Someday, at some point in time, we will open up some of the higher tiers. But we have discussed briefly, but most likely the higher tier openings will be an invite only based on how long you've been a patron.
Mhm.
Just because that makes we can't manage the barrel picks like by the length of patronage because people do change from time to time.
And Patreon is
analytically not good.
Yeah, like you can't pull raw data off it very well, and everything is just kerfuffled in there. So it's something. Yeah. So needless to say, the way that I feel like somebody else on Patreon mentioned this idea, but probably one of the ways to keep it as fair as possible is let people who have been patrons longer jump up the tiers. If so, they choose.
Yeah. If they want, they don't have to.
Kyle Slusher, as the new pope, as the whiskey church, when I receive the Bible, you shall be ordained as Saint Dan, the savant, and Saint Sean of Golden Glen. # blast.
What's that? The Golden Glen's mine though. Kyle.
Quogan,
buddy, I said it earlier. It looks like you just got here. Your thing is in the mail. Your reg proper set's in the mail. It's on the way to you.
Kerfuffled? Yeah, Cheech. It is a good way of just saying it's real fucked up.
Yeah, just absolutely botched.
Yeah.
Okay, so listen, we're gonna have Bill on from Four Gate. We'll have Bill on and we'll let Bill explain Four Gate's whiskey philosophy. Nick said open higher tiers right before Stag Pick release. That'd be amazing.
Chaos Troll.
Nick is literally in the $100 tier. The guy saying this is already in there.
Yep, he's a troll.
Needless to say, Bill is the chief blending officer of Four Gate, and we have gotten like media samples from Four Gate for a while now. Talked to Bill about coming on. This was kind of I was like, hey, can you be on in like a week and a half? He's like, hell yeah, I'll be there. So here we are. So
let's welcome Bill.
You bring Bill in.
I did it.
There we go. How's it going, buddy?
What's going on, fellas? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here,
man. So Four Gate whiskey is like a whole thing. You know what I mean?
That's what I'm told. It's the first I've heard of it.
I listen. Whoever's I need this. We have questions because I asked patrons for questions earlier today.
All right.
But I have my own questions first, and so selfishly, I'm going to ask you questions, and then we can discuss patron questions in a little bit.
Okay.
But if you want to explain before we get into any questions or any of that stuff, if you want to explain what you do, like the philosophy behind Four Gate, it might clear up some questions in the meantime, anyways. So.
Yep. So when we were starting the company, I had it in my head that I just kind of started tasting Scotch for the first time, and I really love the fact that you can take Scotch, which is predominantly one grain, so it's single malt, then use any barrel they want. So they have this flavor profile that's gigantic. When you think about most American whiskeys, it's all, since most of your flavor comes from the barrel, the flavor profiles are kind of like this. If it's a bourbon and there's not vanilla, oak, and caramel in it, then there's something wrong with it. And I had toured Kelvin Cooperage here in Louisville with my partner, Bobby D'Antoni. And I was going through the warehouse, and it just kind of in my mind, I was thinking you could have a lot of fun if you were a small company that could do a few barrels at a time and find some of these really one-off, weird, neat barrels that are floating around this warehouse at Kelvin Cooperage. And you could do something that not a lot of other people are doing. So a lot of other people do barrel finished whiskey, obviously, and that's something that we do as a rule. Most other people kind of just do it as an exception. Sure. Rule, and most of the time you're not taking your very best whiskey and barrel finishing it. Sure. We do. The first thing we think of when we get a whiskey, if it's 10 years old or 15 years old, is how would we barrel finish it? And that's solely because we're just trying to do something different. If I wanted to try to recreate Buffalo Trace, number one, they'll kill me on price. And number two, I can just try to go find Buffalo Trace somewhere. So there's no point in risking a bunch of investors' money to do something that's already being done. So really, that's what we try to do. We try to be a little bit different. We're filling kind of a niche in the market that not a lot of other people are addressing. And you're starting to see more and more of it now, obviously. But yeah, we have fun with it. We try to have fun first and foremost. And so far, it's been a great experience.
Well, your guys' finishes, when we can get into them in a little bit, but the finishing, the ideology behind the finishing with the cooperage differences, and like the split stave stuff is definitely very different from when people think finished whiskey. It's like they had a port barrel or a sherry barrel, right?
What kind
like
of barrel did you finish in?
Yeah. And those two, probably because of like Angel's Envy being such a humongous brand and using almost mainly port for so long. Then when like you see the inside, the picture, I don't know who took it. It's the picture of the split stave that you guys published.
Yeah.
The inside of that barrel looks wild as hell. Like
it's kind of cool.
It looks insane. Yeah. It's so cool.
Yeah. The whole point of that split stave was we were, we'd released 3 batches so far, and all of the finishes we'd used were used cooperage, used barrels from that we were getting from Kelvin Cooperage. And we wanted to kind of give them a chance to flex their muscles a little bit as new coopers. And what can they do? How can a cooperage get creative?
Sure.
And we were tossing around a bunch of ideas of using a combination of toasted casks and then some double oak casks, and just all of a sudden it kind of came together that we decided let's do both in the same barrel. So it's something unique. It's a good, that imagery is fantastic. We love it. And we'll use it as long as we can. And we have a little bit of news about the split stave product coming up here in the next year or so. So we're kind of excited about that as well.
Oh, hell
Very cool.
Somebody in chat real quick said, can we please talk about the amp head and guitar in the background?
Oh God, I wish I'd put that away. No, I haven't actually touched that. I have an acoustic one that I play more often. It's just what I do to relieve stress during the day. I'm an incredibly mediocre guitar player.
Well, listen, if you were like the best guitar player ever, then you might have like a celebrity whiskey instead of like this cool brand doing experimental stuff. You know what I mean?
True.
I don't want any part of that.
Right. Exactly. So your title is Chief Blending Officer, right?
Right.
So what does that entail?
Well, it's kind of funny. It's Bobby's favorite story if we ever get Bobby on here. When we were first making up our business cards, I said, well, what do you want to be? I can put founder, I can put president, I can put CFO. What do you want on there? And he said, that's way too corporate. I want to be chief barrel officer. I said, all right, I'll be chief blending officer. We can't have the same titles. So I guess basically my main role is to I'm kind of the final say on the blends and picking when the finishes are ready, when the aging is ready. But we do most everything together. It's not really a one or the other type of thing.
Okay. So is it just you two then? How many people are involved in Four Gate?
Just two. So we have some other people who invested with us. We have some investors and partners that way, but they're silent investors, and we're very grateful to them, and they trusted us.
Sure, of course.
You sound like a very busy man then.
A little bit.
So, do you guys? This is probably too in the weeds, so I'm only gonna ask one question on this. Do you guys have your own bottling line, like on site somewhere, like where you guys store stuff, or do you guys go somewhere else for that, or?
No, we were at a facility in Bardstown for a while, and we have just, as of our last bottling, so beginning of March, I think it was, or end of February, we moved to Bardstown Bourbon Company for all our operations.
Nice.
We're super excited. That place is fantastic. The people there are so professional and so good at what they do. It's a match made in heaven for us, and they're now carrying our bottles in the gift shop, which is helpful. We always have a lot of people texting us all the time and emailing us and asking where they can find it when they do the Bourbon Trail. And I feel like everybody goes to Bardstown and winds up eating there at Bottled and Bond anyway. So
I've heard that that's
good
like
things.
Yeah, the best place to eat. I've heard that
the
place
chicken sandwich is fantastic.
This is the problem with living, because we live in Michigan, right? And there is not shit up here. So like if we come down to Kentucky,
Gray skies.
Yeah, we have a lot of gray skies. That's true. If we come down to Kentucky, it's usually like packed with stuff, right? Because like we went for a reason, and then we have X amount of days there, and then every day we're there, there's like a schedule, right? One of the times that we go down there, because we've never been to Bardstown at all, and a lot of people are bottling at Bardstown now. It seems like I see it on so many bottle labels now, like the back labels and stuff. And I've literally heard that their restaurant is like absolutely ridiculous. So, We need
for
to, like,
me, it's
go,
by far the best restaurant in Bardstown.
man.
Really?
And I'm hungry, so it's just one of those things right now. And I love a chicken sandwich. I haven't.
Oh,
eaten
it's
every fast
good.
food
It's
chicken
so
sandwich.
good.
You just love sandwich.
That's true.
There you go.
Yeah, that's true. So then I know there a lot of questions were based around finishing. How you guys decide to do that? Like, obviously, the split stave is like an off the wall idea, right?
Mhm.
One of the things that I really like when distilleries do something that Heaven Hill did was they started this William Heaven Hill series, right? And the idea behind the series wasn't we're shooting for a yield, we're shooting for a proof or any whatever, a batching or anything. The whole point of the William Heaven Hill series was let the distiller do something that they want to do, and like let's make a cool project, right?
Mhm.
Like that's
Yep.
the idea behind it. I've never heard anybody say that about or doing that to a cooperage ever. Like reaching out, being like, listen, I know you
I
guys
see what
make
you're
a
saying.
shit ton
Yeah.
of barrels, right? A lot of them. And most of them are like one of these 4 barrels, realistically. The fact that you're like, hey, you guys want to do something just wild off the wall real quick and let's
Yeah.
see how it turns out.
Yeah, you're
Like,
usually putting the spotlight on the distiller or blender or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is definitely a one-off to put it on the cooperage to be like, show
And-
me what you got.
I think that's such an interesting mindset or ideology to me. I love that idea.
It's a lot of fun. We love to speak. We speak very highly of Kelvin, and we love to work with them because when we started this company, Bobby had a good relationship with Kevin McLaughlin, who passed away a little over, I think, 2 years ago now, or a year ago. But he had a great relationship with Kevin, who was one of the 2 brothers who own it. And he just helped us from the start. He gave us the first name that Bobby called, and that kind of started everything where we got in touch with suppliers and bottlers, and basically everything we have came from Kevin.
Okay.
And they've just helped us along from the start. Be it the first year, they didn't really charge us for our barrels because we gave them back to them as soon as we were done, and they were able to resell them.
Oh, that's cool.
They just helped us out in so many ways that they didn't have to do, but they did it because they believed in us and they believed in Bobby, and it was all on a handshake. There was no contract or anything like that. Just
amazing.
really, really great guys down there, really great people. The ladies, the men who work there are really artisans at what they do. And it's really, if you've never been to Kelvin, you got to go arrange a tour of it because you're up close and personal when they're firing barrels indoor in a warehouse. And it's just chunks of burning wood they throw into those things. It'll take your eyebrows off. But it's neat. So we like to call out, all of our batch names, they usually have some sort of a reason that we named them that. And our very first batch was the Kelvin collaboration because we wanted to pay homage to all the help they'd given us. And they're so good. No one knows more about what wood does to whiskey than these guys who are on generation 3 doing it.
Sure.
And they've tasted every before and after for pretty much every company they've ever made a barrel for.
Sure.
It's really cool to just, kind of have them weigh in on ideas. And sometimes they've told us, that's a stupid idea. What the hell are you thinking? And, it's always fun when they have those conversations and you kind of feel like you go, zoop.
Yeah. Right.
So
We had a very similar experience to that. When we went to over to Starlight
Mm-hmm.
and talked to Christian and Blake over there because they're very young. And in whiskey, especially like at a distiller standpoint, you don't meet like a ton of young distillers, right?
Yeah,
Right.
one.
And you definitely don't meet like a ton of young distillers who have the amount of knowledge that Blake and Christian have over at Starlight. And they started talking to us about they wrote thesis papers on
Oak
spirits
influence,
and aging and wood and stuff like that. And they started talking to us. It was like, what the hell did he do? This man is like 6 years younger than me, and he's forgotten more than I'll ever know already. Like right now, like it's the wild. But it was
nice. They talked to us for a minute, like we knew what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Like they knew. We had no idea. After like 4 sentences, our eyes just like glazed over, and they're like, "Oh, too much. All right, dial it back a little bit." We're like, "No, keep going. This is great."
But
That's
the
awesome.
Cooperage stuff, it's interesting, I think, how few people are into the Cooperage aspect of the whole thing, or at least publicly, right? Because the amount, like Blake and Christian over at Starlight have preferences because they source from like 5 or 7 cooperages or something.
Mhm.
They have preferences to certain cooperages in like whether the barrel head's toasted and their barrel's actually charred and like all these things. And it was just like, nobody ever talks about this. We have been on so many tours now and talked to so many people, and I very, very rarely hear about any interest in Cooperage.
Well, normally it's like, all right, well, here's our barrels. We do a number 4 char. They do about this long, and then you're on to the next bullet point.
Yeah.
And then talking to them, and Christian was like, well, I really like, the wood from this cooperage. And if I can get a barrel of wine from over here, I like what they do. And it was like, huh? You care about where the wood? Okay, I guess. And
it's interesting that so few people talk about the barrels because, as they say, it's 85% of the flavor of the end whiskey, and no one seems to really pay much attention. It's in a lot of ways, a lot of people buy barrels like a commodity. I need X number of barrels at this char level for the absolute lowest price you can give me, and they don't. And I think that's probably a mistake. A lot of some of the younger craft distilleries have made. They're trying to meet their costs or stay within budget, I guess you would say. But the reality is you'll have a better product. There's a lot of these new ones that have come out in the last 5 years, particularly all the ones in downtown Louisville. They're all using Kelvin. A lot of them are using Kelvin exclusively. And I can tell a difference at 2 years old. Their products just taste better.
Sure.
A couple of them, Peerless came out at 2 years old. It was one of the best 2-year-old ryes that's ever been released, in my opinion.
Sure. And
they strictly use Kelvin barrels. And I don't have a great explanation for why that it's good or better than anyone else. It could be the humidity levels that they dry to. It could be how they source their wood or dry the wood. I don't know, but it was certainly good. And I can't. You have to attribute a good part of that to the barrels if it's 85% of the flavor. So.
Yeah, you can make your distillate as good as you want if you're putting it into, something that is going to impart terrible flavors for 4 years. Yeah, it's not going to go well.
Yeah. So you guys drinking batch 17 there? I see.
So, I personally love burr ryes like a lot, like have a problem. And so when I saw the email that came out for this one, I'm like, I don't even give a shit. I'm buying it right now. So I bought it right away because it's a burr rye and it's a split stave thing. So it was like doubly cool on top of that, right? I think one thing that there aren't a lot of is barrel proof burr ryes. Most of them are proof down.
Yeah.
Between High West and Redwood Empire and Mythology. And there's so many burr ryes right now that just are like 90-ish proof,
Well, you get to taste 2 of them tonight, I guess, then. So that's good.
Well, I thought to myself, man, you know what? Maybe there's a reason that they're all proof down and it has nothing to do with money. Maybe it's strictly like a flavor issue, right? And then I bought this, I opened it, I'm like, nope, not a flavor problem.
Well, I absolutely love a spicy whiskey and a spicy bourbon. So they're, the bourbons that are in that are all very high rye. They're already 21% rye in the mash bill. And then you add a rye to it. And then the split stave is French oak, which is inherently spicy compared to American white oak. And it's just a spice bomb. And it's probably my favorite thing we've bottled because of that. It hits my palate the way I like it.
So actually that was a question that like a bunch of people asked for sure was like, what's like, okay, give us your top 3 Four Gate products so far.
I'm not going to say in which order, but batch 17, the split stave rye.
Okay.
The Ruby Rye Springs, that's the port rum finished rye.
Okay.
And then batch 6, the Kelvin Collaboration 2.
Oh man. Probably. Okay. Wait, you guys are on 19 right now, right?
Well, 18. You guys actually have a preview bottle there. 18 is hitting stores now, and 19 will come out next month.
Okay. Perfect.
20 will as well. I just didn't have any when I sent you those samples. I hadn't picked them up yet.
So the funny thing is you guys are one of the first people who ever emailed us and was like, hey, can we just like set it up so like from time to time we'll just send you guys some samples of some stuff that we're doing. If you want to talk about it, great. If you and you guys sent that email and I'm like, we friggin' made it.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, this is because obviously, I mean, in all reality, Four Gate is not cheap whiskey by any means, right? Mm-hmm. That's not like part of the brand. It's not part of any of it. And so when you reached out and said that, it was like, I think we had one Four Gate bottle here at the time. Mm-hmm. And it was like, dude, the Four Gate we have is great. It's freaking awesome, right?
I can't remember what it was, but I think like the first media sample you guys had ever sent to us, Dan had poured it blind for me and was like, here, try that. I was like, oh, that's really good. He's like, do you have any idea? And I was like, I gave a couple guys. He's like, nope, it's this. I was like, that's amazing.
But so like for us, it was like, dude, this is like the coolest thing ever. And then when we were talking the other day in the email, you're like, yeah, I'll get you, some stuff out there. I'm like, cool. And then they showed up. I'm like, holy shit, those are bottles. Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah, we previously we've always sent out 100 milliliter samples, sometimes 2 ounce, just depending if it's sometimes our runs come out a lot smaller than we think, and that means that our sales are going to be a lot lower than we hope to be. So we have fewer sample bottles available. But we've kind of decided that instead of me spending 3 days every time we run a batch pouring, 80, 100 milliliter samples, we're going to pick 8 or 10 people who we know will do reviews and send them full bottles. First off, it looks better on screen to have the full bottle. I want people to see the product in front of them. And second off, it makes more sense from a time and money perspective for us.
100%. Well, the amount of with there only being 2 of you, the amount of labor that goes into something that tedious, like the amount of time consumption is just, that's insane.
You're better off spent somewhere else.
Yeah.
It sampled. I hated sample day. It was always 2 full days all day long. All day long, and my basement will smell like bourbon, which isn't the worst thing, but
yeah, that's fair.
Till you come down the next morning at 8 a.m. and it still smells like bourbon.
Well, and it's even worse when you come down at like 8 a.m. the next morning. You're like, holy shit, how much did I drink last night? And then you walk downstairs, and you're like, oh my gosh, too much. That's too much. It's way too much.
Whew, I did have a good night.
The thing you said something really important to us, at least, but we actually, in Matt Porter, ADHD Whiskey, who's in chat right now, he actually just started a series that was a really good idea, but we don't review samples, like whether they're from, like, we don't review sample bottles, basically anything less than like a 375, right? And we review the 375s if they come in 375 format. But it is one of those things where, like you said, does feel weird to have like a bottle review going on and then have like a little sample bottle right there or something like that.
Yeah, these don't really have the same impact.
It's not as sexy. It's just not. You know what I mean?
I think there's a little more to it than that. So we're small. So when we buy a barrel, it's expensive. We're not one of the big boys who can go out and tell them we're not paying more than $1,500 a barrel. We pay upwards of $7,000 or more per barrel. That's why our product's so expensive. So what we've taken very special care that we only use the highest quality components in the bottle, because it's such a small part of your retail price compared to the liquid that's in it.
Right.
That we want you, if you have to spend $170 plus, I want you to pick up the bottle and it should feel like $170 to $200 bottle.
Sure.
So we emboss everything that we can. We try to use real corks. Some news on that is the supply chain constraints have caught up with us. We'll have to be switching to a different bottle temporarily.
Oh, really?
Coming up here for the next probably 6 months or so. But we'll go back to these new shape. I'm sorry?
Is it an entirely new shape?
Yeah, it's a little shorter. It reminds me of some of the bottles that Belle Meade uses.
Oh, yep. Okay.
So they're common bottles. They're just not the ones that we originally chose. So we're resizing the labels, and we'll probably have to run probably 4 batches or so that way, and hope. We've already tried to order these. The problem is these come from Poland. They're made in a factory in Poland. They come here. Well, there's a lot of stuff going on in Eastern Europe right now, and the factory is about 100 miles from a border that's not so stable. So we don't know when or if we'll be able to get these bottles again for a while. So.
Right.
Lord.
Well, the good news is, the good news is you have the ability to transition to a new bottle. I know that's not ideal. The dream, right?
Yeah.
But
and for those of you that don't know, getting embossed bottles adds exponential cost to your product.
Yeah.
Well, we emboss the label, so that's not really that big of an issue. We don't put anything on the bottles. The other reason we weren't really upset about it, as I mentioned, we had some news about the split stave, and as we expand to new states, we're getting ready to launch in Illinois. So this Covenant Collaboration 4 will be our first new product to go to Illinois, and then later this year we're going to Colorado. So as we expand to new states, our distributors have asked that in addition to these one-off releases that we do over and over, that we have a consistent product that they can keep on a shelf.
Sure.
Okay.
We don't want it to be confused with this one, so it's going to be very similar looking, but we're going to use those new bottles even after we can get these again, and that's going to be a split stave. It's probably going to be a 7-year bourbon in a split stave barrel, and it'll be available year round.
Dude, that'd be nice. So then, I guess on top of that, because one question that a bunch of people on Patreon actually asked was, are you guys going to create a lower price product? Now that's a split stave. So again, I know that the barrel is going to be expensive. And at this point, 7-year whiskey is not young.
Because you're getting a recoopered barrel. Yeah.
No, we spent a fortune on the 7-year-old barrels. 7-year-old barrels today cost what 3- and 4-year-old barrels did 2 years ago.
Right.
When we were still buying some of our first barrels. So these will be slightly lower. They'll probably be about $25 cheaper than our standard releases.
Okay.
But that's we're not paying less for them, if that makes sense. We
Right.
just decided to cut the cost a little bit, or cut the
Sure.
price a little bit.
Do you guys
Um,
have stocks anywhere that you're currently aging up?
We do now. We're starting to build up some stocks, and we're probably good for the next year or two, I guess.
Oh, wow.
But it also depends. We've heard our distributors mention California a couple times, in Florida, and those are big states. And we just got into Texas, and they'll literally take, I think, anything that we can put, as much as we can put in a bottle. It's insane, that place.
And that's exactly why Buffalo Trace sends all the Weller there.
Yep. They're like, you know what? You guys buy all of our stuff.
But Texas seems to just be like a black hole for like people sending whiskey there.
Drinking whiskey.
Yeah, it's just like, listen, you
It's
send
just
it.
a giant sponge. It just sucks it all up, and that's why the state's so big and it's full of whiskey.
They got nothing to look at.
Yeah, we live in the
Like,
Midwest. So
they do.
It's kind of sad in Texas.
There's
No,
plenty of
Texas.
cows in Texas.
They got hurricanes.
It's not sad.
It's
in
flat.
Texas.
No, they have hurricanes and tornadoes.
Oh, that's true.
They
Yeah.
get the worst of both worlds.
Yeah, do they have earthquakes there?
No.
Okay, so they don't have that at least. You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah, we don't have that either.
I know we only have tornadoes. We don't have hurricanes.
Yeah.
But so then you guys sell on Seal Box, right?
Yep.
You sell at Justin's House of Bourbons. You guys are on Bourbon
Yep.
Outfitters as well, I believe.
Yep.
So then are you guys on other websites? Because obviously
Caskers.com.
Caskers, okay. Are you guys like there's like shared pour and sip whiskey? Are you guys on either of those?
We're not actually. We're working with our main distributors, Republic National, everywhere except Kentucky, or except Tennessee, excuse me. And they kind of want to help guide our expansion.
Okay.
So we're kind of going with them for now.
Sure.
So we're not really looking at any additional websites. We kind of want to figure out what we're doing with brick and mortar stores before we expand the online presence too much. We don't want to cut into those sales and that relationship that we're trying to build.
Well, I mean, you only have so much whiskey, right? At this point,
And that's the other issue. Yeah.
That's the thing is it's like you could be on every website in the country, but now every website gets 5 bottles instead of 100.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but how big are your guys' batches? Like
That's what I was going to ask.
average ballpark?
Well, we're trying to grow those, and that's mainly again because we're expanding to new states. So we have some very small ones coming up because a lot of our batches were they were already in motion before we added Texas and Louisiana recently. So that we've got a couple of small ones. One's only 600 bottles. We've got one that's only about 100 bottles. It's a 14-year barrel proof. It's amazing. But they're going to be for the next couple of batches. The ones that you got in front of you, the Saint Laurent and the Kelvin Collaboration 4 are both high 2000, so 26 to 2800, which is large. It would have been one of our biggest in the first year or two, and we'll grow that a little bit, and then we'll have that kind of standard split stave release. We'll probably do a rye split stave the following year.
Okay.
And then we are working to get some of the barrels from our first batch. They're Oloroso sherry and dark rum.
Okay.
And if we can get a lot of those, we may do a third kind of standard release that's barrel finished in those sherry rum barrels for a while. But those won't last forever, so it would only be a year or two.
Sure. I think, but that's kind of the fun part, right? Yeah. Like kind of the fun part of a lot of like what you guys are, like Four Gate. When I see Four Gate, the fun part is I don't know what the hell it is, right? Like I know what Four Gate the company is, which means I don't know what the whiskey, what you guys did to it right off the rip. So I grabbed the bottle and I look at it. That's why, like, I saw this red label and I read the words Burr Rye and I'm like, I literally bought it. It's one of those things where every one of them's different. Mm-hmm. Like all the blue ones have different finishes and the ryes, like now you guys are doing all the toasted stuff with the picks and stuff. Sean got me the Bourbon Outfitters toasted Four Gate pick was it my birthday?
I think so.
My birthday last year.
Was that the 8-year rye?
No, it's a bourbon.
Yeah, the 6 or 7 year bourbon.
Cast strength bourbon.
6 year.
Mm-hmm.
Those were my favorites of the single barrel, the private picks last year.
Damn good.
It's so good. It's ridiculous. Like I really, really, really like toasted bourbon a lot. So Sean gave that to me where we were down in Florida and I opened it and I'm like, holy shit, this is everything I wished it was. You know what I mean? Like without a doubt.
Is there anything that you're aching to do that you're trying to get barrels for a finish of?
Honey. I really want to try some honey finish rye. We're working on some. Bob and I were just texting today. He's working on some Madeira casks and some A few of them that we haven't done yet. Stuff like that I want to try. And I want to let Kelvin Cooperage play around a little bit again, and I want him to play around. So I still want to do a split stave release every year as a limited release in addition to the standard one, but I want them to really get crazy and maybe do red wine and new toasted staves or something like that, and kind of blend them together and have a little fun with it and show us what they can do. And I think stuff like that is fun. And if we're not having fun and trying to do something a little bit different, then we're not doing what we set out to do. So
that's so interesting. So how long do you let stuff sit in the secondary barrels for, roughly?
It depends. We until we like the taste of it. I am someone who does not like to overpower bourbon with a finish. I want to taste the whiskey. So that's one thing that we try to do as a rule is we won't barrel finish something that we wouldn't drink if we didn't barrel finish it. So when we make a blend, it's because we love that blend. Really like the whiskey that came out of it. Like this Bry was fantastic, even before we put it in the split stave casks. We do it by taste. We won't do it less than 30 days just because it kind of feels cheap to say, hey, 22 days on a label or something like that.
As long as we could.
So we won't do less than 30 days, but we've done as much as 5 or 6 months on the first split stave and as low as 30 days. Okay. And it's just till we think it's ready and probably not going to get any better. Sure.
Have you done anything that didn't turn out?
Not really. The closest thing that happened is that it didn't turn out badly. It just wasn't as good as I wanted, as I'd hoped it would be. We did a series
didn't live up to expectations.
This actually it wound up becoming a very great release, but we changed it. So we'd blended 3 Kentucky Heritage distillates together and finished it in dark rum casks. And the blend of the 3 whiskeys was great. And when you put it in the dark rum cask, it was just rum finished bourbon. And it could have been 6-year or 12-year. It just kind of muddled a little bit. It was too sweet. So we were trying to figure out what to do. Bobby and I were standing with William Hornaday of Kelvin Cooperage. We were standing in the warehouse, and he said, hey, we just got this shipping container in. There's these a Paris sherry and tawny port barrels from Australia we just got in. And Bobby and I looked at them. We went and smelled them. They were fantastic. And we thought, well, we want all of these. But as of right now, we don't have any whiskey to put in them. And I think it was Bobby said, well, what about that rum finish stuff? And the light went off. He had already wanted to call the batch Kentucky Bluegrass Trilogy because it had 3 distillates in it. And then it dawned on me that, well, why don't we take that rum finish stuff, put some in the tawny port and some in the sherry, and then we'll take a portion of each of those at the end and blend those together. So there's 3 different finishes with 3 different distillates. So it's Bluegrass Trilogy 2 different ways, and that became our trilogy set, batch 15, 1 through 3. And you may have seen some of those in the wooden box and a few of those.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that was insanely labor intensive batch and expensive to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every time I see something in a wild, like a real box, right? Like there's a difference between like a cardboard box.
Yeah.
And then like some of the Compass box stuff comes in a normal cardboard box.
Yep.
And then you get stuff like you're talking about that's like a wood box. And you open that shit and you're like, winner, I don't even care what's in the bottle right now.
Like the Blue Run one that you got?
Yeah.
That had that like awesome one-off.
Yeah. The Blue Run single barrels had like these nice like they felt handcrafted. You know what I mean? Which is cool, but.
Ours are made by a single gentleman out in Washington State, and they're handmade. And it took him we still haven't gotten them out in Georgia and I think Louisiana, or Georgia and Nashville. The main reason is that, so this tells you how small our company is. We don't have somebody to pack these things in the boxes.
Sure.
And we have these cardboard boxes that come in flat, and you have to fold them up.
Yeah.
And when we do the wooden boxes, we match the bottle number. So if you have bottle number 10 of the first one, you also have bottle number 10 of the second and bottle number 10 of the third.
Wow.
In the wood boxes only. But we literally have to go into the distributor's warehouse, Bobby and I, and we'll hire somebody to come pay them, $150 or something and buy them lunch. Sure. And we sit there all day and fold cardboard boxes and put them in these wooden boxes, and you have to peel plastic off the plexiglass front, and then we put them in these boxes and stack them up, and it takes all day. It's backbreaking and obnoxious, and I hate it. And we're getting ready to do it in Georgia for Georgia, and they bought a good number of them. So.
Folding boxes may be the worst.
Yeah, it's
like mind-numbingly.
We used to fight.
It's mildly better than filling about 300 sample bottles in a game.
Yeah.
Wait, you'd rather fold and tape the boxes than fill the sample bottle?
Well, the reason for that is at least there's other people in the room with you. It's not just you in a dark basement all day.
Fair.
Oh no.
Okay.
Those are 2 very tedious.
So I just cracked batch 18 This was one that I was actually really excited for when I first saw the label.
this
This is the cognac finished one.
Okay.
I love the nose on this.
Yeah, that is wild. It's so sweet. I love it. We've had a few different cognac things finished now, and I've been a really big fan of them. Like the gentle sweetness that the cognac brings, and it's like always oily. I really enjoy it. So when I saw that, I was like, dude, this is everything I want. It's cask strength. I'm excited.
So
Well, this is the same base whiskey that we used in the 6 and 7 year private select cast last year.
okay.
So it's that 21% rye Kentucky straight bourbon. It's spicy on its own, and I feel like with the cognac on this on the nose, it's like an apple pie. It's cinnamon and baking spices with that cognac orchard fruit. I can sit here and smell it all day.
So okay, I'm gonna botch the name for everybody in chat, and then I'd like you to correct me because I'm not gonna pronounce this correctly.
He's already said it once, so good luck.
I literally know that. Okay, it's clearly Saint Trent.
It's Saint Charity. No, actually, it's Saint Charant. I believe it's Saint Charant. I believe it's Saint Charant. And Bobby, my partner, is kind of the sub-label name whisperer. He just comes up with great ones all the time.
Sure.
And some of them have deep meaning to us, and some of them don't. This one, Charant, is the name of the river that runs through the Cognac region in France, where the barrels were from. And we were trying to work that into a name somehow, and he was looking at a map, and he saw every little town along that river started with Saint something or other.
Sure.
So he said, let's just call it Saint Charant. I said, it's old American. Let's do it.
Sounds good. Yes.
Rip it.
Right. So it's funny you say that because we had there was a patron came over because he was in town and he's obsessed with Four Gate and Old Carter. His name's Blake. I don't know if Blake's in chat, but Blake stopped by, and we have a lot of whiskey in the hut. And so, like, when he stopped by, I was like, you clearly don't have to bring any whiskey here to drink.
But he did.
And he brought, like, literally, like, a giant cardboard box full of freaking whiskey, right? He pulls out, like, 6 Four Gates.
He brought 2 of them.
4 Gates?
No, 2 boxes.
Oh, 2 boxes. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, he did not.
I thought you meant 2 bottles. All right.
No,
he
2 boxes
he brought,
of
like,
whiskey.
6 Four Gates, 6 Old Carters, and a bunch of other stuff.
Maybe
So-
you're just seeing triple or something. I didn't know.
You know, well, no, this
Not
is
at
at the
that time.
beginning.
Oh,
of
at the beginning. All right.
So not yet. Yeah. One of them that he brought was the Eagle Thief.
Oh, yeah.
And so now I know that I kind of know the actual meaning behind Eagle Thief. It's a golf meeting, right? Or the eagle part, the golf part. In my head though, when I read Eagle Thief on a bottle, I'm thinking of a giant bald eagle coming out of the sky, lightning, thunder, America, right? And he's thieving whiskey out of a barrel, and it's the coolest imagery in my head ever. So like when I saw that bottle, I'm like, dude, that's the one I'm drinking. I don't care.
Well, if we hadn't made it for a better purpose than that, I guess then we would have maybe we would have thought of something like that.
Right.
On the
If you're ever
label, but-
stumped, just call up Dan.
Yeah, listen,
He'll help you out.
that's not. You guys actually had a good reason to name it that, right?
Mhm. Yeah, that was a tribute bottle, and Bobby did almost 99.9, probably 99.9%, other than some of the marketing and stuff that I did, some stuff with the distributors, because Kevin McLaughlin, who was his great friend, was the older brother of the 2 who owned Calvin Cooperage, passed away from cancer right between Christmas and New Year's of 2019, I think it was,
Okay.
or 2020. And so that was a tribute bottle that we did, and almost all the profits of that went to Kevin's charity of choice, the West End School in Louisville. So
that's
pretty much
amazing.
everything on the label has some sort of a reference to Kevin McLaughlin. The colors are Pepperdine University's colors, where he played college golf.
That's
He was
cool.
a phenomenal golfer. That was kind of his thing. If you'd ever been around the country club scene in Louisville, he won all of his club he won like 19 out of 21 club championships in a row. Or like,
Jesus.
he's just a phenomenal golfer. It was his I forget what was the other thing on there. There's a 2.1 or plus 2.1 was on there, and that was his handicap, meaning that he generally shot under par. And
Oh, that's really cool.
the whole thing was just, and even the proof came out because it was within 2%. It was, I think, 122.7, which was 12/27, the day that he passed away.
Holy shit! Are you?
Whoa.
So that's wild.
Just everything on there is some meaning that Bobby put into that label, and it's a labor
Right.
of love. And then we were able to present a pretty nice check to the West End School, who greatly appreciated it.
Well, that's incredible. And
Yeah.
I mean, the whiskey in that bottle was absolutely phenomenal. On top
Yeah.
of all of that, so
And you
that
got to do
was-
something cool.
That
with
was so.
proceeds.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's what it was. It was 10 plus 2 is what we said the age was to make it a 12-year.
Okay.
It was actually a 13.5-year bourbon. But we had it approved at 12 years. So
We had it
plus
dropped
two
to
was
12
its
year.
handicap, which is why we
That's so
we
cool.
used that.
That's
It
a
was
great
neat,
idea.
and I have to, again, every time I mention it, I have to thank everyone from our distributor to almost all the retailers to the bottlers. They all lowered their prices, and then the retail price was almost double what we normally would charge, and all of that went to all that extra amount that everyone kind of gave up for this went to the West End School. That was how we were able to bump the profits up because there were only 2 barrels of this
Sure.
that we sold.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you ever see it on a shelf, I've seen 1 or 2 of them in the last year around Kentucky.
Yeah.
And it's probably the price that scared people off because it was over $400, but it's a really good, if you want an old straight bourbon whiskey,
It's
Kentucky,
phenomenal.
it's really good.
That's actually, I want to leave room for a different release that I don't think of off the top of my head, but that's easily top 2 Four Gates for me that I've ever had.
Yeah. Because I came a few minutes late, and Dan was like, "No matter what, you have to try that before you go."
Yeah.
Like, all right.
And before you drink like 30
Yeah.
other things, because Blake feels the
Boxes.
need to bring everything in the world, But
Well,
Bourbon's
do
a
what you got to do.
he's a good sharer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's interesting to know. I mean, okay, real quick before we move on, because I need to know, and I know you said it earlier. I just wanted you to pronounce it for everybody in chat. How do you pronounce the mixture of a bourbon and rye whiskey?
Rye.
Oh, that's a new one for me.
We could not use Rye because that's actually trademarked.
Is it real? Are you kidding me?
So we have filed for a trademark on Rye, which with 2 R's.
Yeah, look at the back. It says BRR.
It says it on the front too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, so is it High West that owns the Rye thing?
I think so. I'd have to ask our attorney who looked into it.
Well, they say Boo Rye.
They do.
Yeah.
They call it Boo Rye.
BOURYE is actually trademarked. Yeah.
What?
I did not know that.
I don't agree with
Yeah.
the pronunciation of Boo Rye. So
Nope.
We trademarked split stave, if that helps.
you did?
We
And
did.
You trademarked Burr Rye. Well,
Burr.
And Rye, yeah.
Rye. Sorry.
You know what we have trademark? Nothing.
Rye.
After this, Rye with 4 R's
Yep.
and 3 Y's. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
I think you have to roll the R when you say it. I don't know. I can't
We're
do
gonna
it.
have to make
Yeah.
it not too similar to your guys'
Mhm,
trademark.
mhm, mhm.
But
If I drink about 6 more of these, I could probably roll my R's.
there you go. I can't at all. So
Oh, you can't.
I cannot roll. We can't trademark that because I can't pronounce it. I'm gonna have to go and be like, somebody say this for me. I can't do it.
Okay.
Um.
Well, that's good. If they have Boo Rye trademark, we can trademark Burr Rye.
So somebody said you could trademark Rybin. Rye bourbon.
Rybin.
That's perfect. I never heard Rybin, and I love that.
It's already been trademarked. Sorry.
Okay. So let me see some of the questions that we had from patrons.
Yep.
So just to expand on one of the questions earlier, there are not current plans for like $100 bottle of whiskey at this
No.
point, basically.
No.
Okay.
It costs us way too much to put. So just to for people's reference, the markup between what we sell to a distributor and what you pay at retail is about 100%.
Sure.
And it costs us, if we were to do a $100 bottle, we would lose money on it based on what we
Right.
pay until we're exponentially bigger than we are. It can make huge purchases of whiskey all the time.
Well, and you can make huge batches. I mean,
Yeah.
that's you need so much whiskey
To
So,
continually put out big batches.
when you're
yeah.
paying that much for whiskey, and then on top of it, finishing it, which is extra time,
extra
an extra
yeah.
barrel, an extra, whatever. There's so much extra cost padded.
We've had batches where the whiskey in the bottle alone, before we barrel finished it, before we bottled it, before we paid any overhead or anything like that, was $68 in a bottle. So it doesn't leave a lot of room,
Right.
for $100 bottle.
Well,
essentially.
because the other thing that not everybody is fully aware of is the farther you get into it, you then the distributor marks it up, right?
Mhm.
So it's you guys
Good
have
old
your
three-tier
you guys
system.
have your cost, not even your price, your cost, right? You're out this much money per bottle. And then you guys need to make money because you're a business. So if you don't make money, there won't be Four Gate whiskey anymore at all,
Yeah.
right? And then the distributor needs to make money, and then the retail store needs to make money. So like you just said, if your cost is $68 on a bottle of whiskey, there's no way after distributor and retailer, you'd lose money at $100 without a doubt.
And that's just the liquid the liquid that came out of the barrels that went into those bottles. That's before we paid labor to barrel finish it, bought any additional barrels, before we bought the bottles, paid someone to put it in a bottle, all that stuff. The other thing that people don't understand is in Kentucky for bottling, the moment you sell it to a distributor, there's a 13% VAT tax. So that's added on top of when the distributor goes to sell it to a retailer, they take their price and their markup and then add 13% to it because they have to pay that to the state of Kentucky.
Sure.
So there's an additional 13% on an already marked up product before it gets to a retailer who has to tax you for it too.
Right.
So it's kind of crazy. I think that 100% markup is crazy. By the same token, people ask if we want to get rid of the 3-tier system, and I say I do not want to have a national team of salespeople. So no, prefer letting a distributor be that. In case anyone's wondering, I'm not hiring salespeople.
It becomes I think the online shopping aspect becomes far more interesting when you need to hire a wholesale team instead. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Plus, the 3-tier system is the devil you know versus the unknown on that one.
That's true. It is the devil.
Yeah. Yep.
Now we don't have to get too far into this, but sometimes, and you guys, it's cool that you guys have a relationship with a big one that you seemingly is going really well, right? Yeah. Our experience, and I know some of our friends shop owners' experiences with some of the big ones are just like, dude, you guys lost a barrel in a warehouse and then delivered it to the wrong shop. You know what I mean? Like that's a huge freaking problem for us.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. I mean,
shit happens, right? But,
or the system broke and one store ordered everything in the state.
Yeah. So Michigan turned into a huge shit show about 2 years ago, distributor wise. Yeah. And unfortunately, somebody got into the system and then ordered.
They had a bot order every
Old
Old Forester birthday bourbon.
They actually had 80% of Old Forester birthday bourbon from Michigan delivered to their shop and dropped off and left there.
And no one was like, that doesn't look right.
Yeah.
They just were like, cool, man, here's your order.
Yeah, the guy's dropping off whiskey. He's like, here's your shit. You know what I mean?
Did they happen to leave instructions of how they were able to do that? Can you send them to me in an email?
Right. Well,
it did not go well for them.
They actually, the threat was you return X% of that whiskey or you stop getting limited production. The guy goes, I don't give a fuck, and sold it all at secondary out of his shop and kept it also.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was like, and then they changed their whole system. And then we had liquor stores up here not getting Jack Daniels for like 3 or 4 weeks at a time because distributors stopped delivering. Not all of them. Mm-hmm. It's one specifically, but it's one of the big ones. But okay, so
Patreon questions.
Find
a good one.
How does the 3 tiers? This is not a Patreon question. Sorry, this is a chat question.
Yeah.
How does the 3-tier system work when you buy a bottle at the distillery?
The distillery has to buy them back
from the distributor.
So if you go to Buffalo,
the distillery, they've recently changed the laws on that in Kentucky a little bit to make it a little easier. But technically, the distillery has a sort of a package retail license, and they have to buy them back from the distributor.
Mm-hmm.
At least that's the way it was traditionally. It may have changed within the last year because I know they were trying to make that easier. Now I know as a producer, you can get a direct-to-consumer license to ship.
Okay.
But it's, again, do you really want to own a warehouse and ship out of a warehouse?
And depending on the state that you're in, you can only ship to so many states anyways, right? Yeah. So
I would rather have Bourbon Outfitter and Sealbox do all of that and just sell it to them and let them. I mean, anyone in almost any state who wants our product can get it right now. Yeah. So I don't really see the need to go through the expense. It would make it more expensive if we did it, and I don't think anyone really needs that.
Sure.
And Bourbon
Outfitter, it's already. I mean that system's already in place through Sealbox and Bourbon Outfitter. So
yeah. Okay. So when we were at Buffalo Trace in January. Mm-hmm. And that was when we realized this. We learned that Buffalo Trace sells. So that the day, for example, the day we're there, they have Eagle Rare in the distillery, right? Mm-hmm. So they sold that Eagle Rare to the distributor, who then sold it back to Buffalo Trace so that they're legally allowed to sell it in their own distillery where they made it. And I was like, this seems insane to me, but
oh yeah.
Got to get that tax money, Daniel.
Right. Okay. So patron question. Was there you kind of answered this actually. Was there a collaborative blend you wanted to make, but it fell through or didn't come out as you hoped? You mentioned that with the rum, like the triple finish stuff earlier. Was that the only thing?
Pretty much,
You guys can just let it sit in a barrel longer if it's currently not good.
Or put a different finish on it.
Yeah.
Like
And then,
The only time we really got out there with the finish was our second batch, the Outer Loop Orbit.
Sure.
And that's one that it's kind of it's a little bit divisive. Most people, when they actually try it, will like it, unless you don't like gin because it smells like gin on the nose.
Okay.
And then you won't like it at all. But it's if there's any one of our batches that people just kind of are a little hit and miss on, it's that one. And I would say it's probably 80-20, 80% people like it when they try it and 20 don't.
So do you guys have any future offerings that will be a recreation of something that's already out here, like a second version of, the cognac finish or something like that?
Well, we do split stave every year, and we'll have one, when we do that consistent product, what they call a consistent SKU, SKU from the distributor, that will be repeated. And that's going to be the closest to our batch 4, the first split stave.
Okay.
So it'll be basically a 7-year bourbon in split stave casks. And then we'll have a rye, which is going to be pretty similar to our batch, was it 10, the split stave rye? And that'll probably be a year down the road. But that'll be a rye. It'll be about a 6 or 7 year rye in split stave casks as well. So those two will repeat. And then again, I think I mentioned it earlier, we're working on getting some barrels that are the same line as our first batch. And we'll produce, try to get for a couple of years, we'll be able to produce some of those. But we probably will repeat some finishes. The one thing that's not the same is we rarely will get the same whiskey again. So even if we use the same finished barrels, it's not going to taste exactly the same.
Yeah, that's why I asked if you do like a recreation of that.
Now I do kind of want to do Ruby Rye Springs again, and we do have enough of that rye where if we can get those barrels again, we can do something real similar.
Okay.
So I'd like to do that and maybe age that one a little bit longer and see if we can't pull even more flavor out of those barrels.
Okay. Somebody from chat. Jeff says, are you ready to tell us what's in batch 5, the best you've released?
Absolutely not. I would love to. We have an NDA with the producer of that. It's very interesting. If you knew what it was, you'd probably like it more. It's very the actual distillate is hard to find, but it's very popular, and the lifespan of these barrels make that batch pretty much incredibly unique. And I think you can taste it how unique it is. But it has exchanged hands from 2 major distilleries. I can give you that.
Oh, that's different.
It started life contract distilled from one of the major distilleries by another one.
Oh, that's cool. I like that. Okay, so to get you off the hot seat of people asking you things you're not allowed to talk about.
Don't get me sued.
You may actually answer.
Any more toast? This is going to kind of be a 2-part question, but any more toasted barrel bourbon in the near future? And then when are the junkies doing a 4 Gate pick? That's what they asked on Patreon.
We're never letting the junkies do another pick. Do a pick. No, I kid. You guys are actually doing one this year, and it should be in the next few weeks. We'll be able to have samples ready.
Yeah,
there you go.
So we'll be back in touch with your options. There's a couple different 2 or 3 different bourbons and a rye option.
Yeah,
and they're all going to be finished about 30 days in a toasted cask.
I like this comment.
I'm ecstatic because, like I mentioned it earlier, but that Bourbon Outfitter pick is ridiculous. Like, I love it.
Jeff said, blink twice if it's wild turkey.
I'm not giving you any clues here.
Very fair.
Just trying to get him in trouble. He's got NDA.
No, don't get me sued, please.
Right.
Yeah. 3 times the schnitzel feller.
But yeah, so
now you got me wanting to blink all the time. I'm paranoid about it.
Now it's conscious.
I don't want to say anything.
I've thought about blinking in the past 2 weeks.
It's like when you realize you're breathing, you're like, can I just not think about this and keep going?
And then you start suffocating. And you're like, whoa, I got to do that.
Oh God.
So let's see. We have talked. I hadn't announced it yet, which is why I asked you the question. But
put him in the hot seat. I wish you'd been like never. Just cat on. You've been like, wait, what?
Yeah. So we did briefly talk about doing a 4 Gate pick this year. I'm super excited. Like I mentioned earlier, I love toasted bourbon, toasted rye. I love just toasted whiskey in general. I don't really give a shit what kind it is at this point. People do generally flock, in our experience, limited experience, people generally flock to bourbon over rye for us when we do picks and stuff like that. But at this point, dude, toasted rye, people are sleeping.
Yeah.
If you don't drink toasted rye whiskey, you're wrong. You have to be wrong.
We just dropped 2 Nulus that were toasted rye,
and they're
some of our favorite picks right
they're
now.
amazing. Toasted rye is so good.
And then Dan's other favorite is toasted bourbon.
Yeah.
They were the toasted rye were probably the more popular public wise of our first round of private casks.
Mhm.
Really?
Yeah,
That's so.
I can see that.
interesting.
they were 8 years
Kinda
old.
touched the spiciness.
Indiana rye, fantastic barrels. Just a really, really good lot of barrels. From pretty much their choice warehouse there. We kind of lucked into them. We've got a few more of them this year, and they're going to be probably 9 years old, I think, for the single barrel picks.
I love rye. What it seems like what we find with patrons when we do the picks is if we drop a bourbon and rye at the same time, the bourbon's gone immediately, and then the rye like lingers out. Now we did just drop the 2 toasteds, but so toasted is really hot right now, right? And then we generally don't sell rye as well as we would sell a bourbon. So when you put toasted on the rye, it does kind of change how the rye sells in that situation. But,
Well, here's a question from chat. Outside of Four Gate, Bill, what do you like to drink?
I've always been I growing up here in Louisville. Old Forester is kind of the house bourbon of the city. If you go to a wedding, there's always Old Forester 86 is just the standard bourbon. If you don't call out a name, that's what you're getting. So I grew up on Old Forester. I like all the different Old Forester offerings. Love 1920. I really like Heaven Hill's flavor profile.
okay.
That 6-year bottle and bond was my go-to for years. I love the Elijah Craig, especially the barrel proof, obviously.
Sure.
I tend to drink barrel proof stuff. So, anything I can get that's full flavored. And usually it's a bourbon, usually it's pretty full flavored. I don't drink a lot of other people's finished whiskey. I like to try it, but I don't really drink it as a rule.
That's fair.
Ton of
Well,
Four
that's
Gate,
fun.
obviously.
I never thought
Sure,
about
that's a
that.
surprise.
Most of their stuff is finished. So
Yeah, almost all of it,
Yeah.
right? Almost all your guys. So what you guys have released straight ryes that are not finished, haven't you?
Yeah, we've had 2. They're called River Calvin Rye. That's our straight rye release.
Okay.
batch number 7.
And then we've had 3 bourbons right now. We had a Tennessee bourbon that our Tennessee distributors requested.
Okay.
And they requested that because our batch 3 and 5 that people were asking about earlier, what's in it, those were just straight Kentucky bourbon. And those were just, we call it foundation when we do a bourbon. And it's either foundation, Tennessee foundation, and we've got an Indiana foundation coming up, which is that really special one. But we called it foundation, and we had this in our heads when we started the company. If the foundation of what we do, it has to be great whiskey before we barrel finish it. We're not trying to cover up flaws of bad whiskey. We're not trying to hide bad whiskey with a barrel finish. So the foundation of what we do is great whiskey. And sometimes we come across some stuff that is just, we taste it. We taste it with Kelvin Cooperage, and we all agree we can't make this better. We can't do anything that's going to make it better. Let's put it out, or at least a big chunk of it, and then use some of the other ones in some blends that are pretty solid too. So we've done 2 Kentuckys. We did the Tennessee, and then we have the 2 ryes that have been out. We've got a 14-year Indiana that's 144 proof. There's only about 100 bottles that are going to be sold of that. We had 3 barrels, and we got 129 bottles.
Out of 3 barrels?
3 barrels. It's old. It is really high proof.
Yeah.
And we also, at the same time that we release that, we're going to have a 10-year bourbon that's going to be more normal, both in price and in size of the batch. That's, if you can't find that 14-year, I promise this 10 years is really good. It's in Indiana. It'll be called Indiana Foundation as well.
Interesting.
So when you guys go through picking a bourbon for a finish, do you try it and then think, I think this would be good in this type of barrel, or how does it work for you guys?
Yeah, sometimes we just play around with blends depending on what we have, and sometimes, so that's why sometimes it's a blend like this Bry. Sometimes it's a blend, and then we'll take it to Kelvin Cooperage and have them taste it too, and they let us know what do we have, what can we get, and sometimes we plan well in advance where they'll tell us, hey, we can get an ocean container of these barrels, or someone's offering these barrels. Do you want them? And we'll go check them out and say absolutely, and then we'll blend something we think, or pick whiskey if we think we have something that's perfect for it that matches well with that. So if we have something super spicy, I tend to like to pair it with a sweet finished barrel. Other than this split stave, the only reason we made it that way is we wanted it to be a spice bomb.
I'm glad. I'm happy that this is
the way it is.
Was in the barrel it was in, and not. I like finished whiskey a lot. So I don't say that. I don't say this to say that I'm don't like finished whiskey. I'm so happy that this was in a split stave barrel. The Bry is so damn good, and It's not overly sweet, like you said. It has like the spice in the back end. I had like, what did I just buy recently? That was a burr rye, and it was like the weirdest burr I've ever had, and it was like not spicy. It was flat on the back. It wasn't sweet up front. Like it wasn't. It just didn't feel put together well. You know what I'm saying? And it was one of those things where that's like the worry, huh?
Willet Blacktop.
Oh yeah, that was, and it was just one of those things where it's funky and it's different, and it's wild, but it didn't fulfill. When I read that one word, I read that word and I freaking immediately think it's going to taste like something. Yeah, and that's why I'm happy this tastes so damn good.
Well, that's the challenge.
Well, the batch 19 doesn't say it on the bottle specifically, but it is the Bry blend. This is finished in the Tawny Port and Barbadian dark rum.
So this is similar to this, finished in.
It's a different mix of the whiskeys, but yeah.
Okay. Open that though, because I'm on. This is my second. I poured the cognac twice now.
I poured this.
It smells ridiculous, and I keep drinking it, and I smell it 42 times because it smells ridiculous. There's just something. You mentioned Scotch earlier, right? With especially a single malt Scotch, it is one of these weird things where single malt Scotch, like you said, is one thing, and then has like this flavor profile that's like the broadest thing in the whole freaking world, you know?
Yeah.
And so
anything under sun.
When you get into bourbon, there's a broad range of bourbon for sure. I think it's undersold. The range of bourbon I think is undersold, but it is also limited by law to some extent, right?
Yeah.
So when you start adding like the cool characteristics and happiness and love to bourbon, then I can have both. I can have normal bourbon, and I can have like sweet bourbon. I can have like spicy bourbon. It's the best.
Do you guys have any plans?
I think the flavor. I think the differences for most bourbons, and it probably, this is probably more appropriate to bourbons made in and around Kentucky, because when you get out west and you're talking about 291 and those Aspen staves and stuff like that, it's a distinctly different flavor profile. But for the most part, there is a difference, but you kind of have to train yourself to taste that difference. You have a lot of people who say bourbon tastes like bourbon until they've really gotten into it. Yeah. But you could give somebody from day one a sherried Scotch versus a non-sherried Scotch versus a Scotch that's peated, and they'll tell the difference between all three if they've never tasted Scotch before in their life. Right. And that's what I mean by the difference in flavor profiles. Whereas bourbon, because it has that new oak barrel, it always has to be vanilla, and it should always be vanilla and oak and probably something caramel related, or they've kind of fucked it up. I mean, let's be honest here. If something similar to those aren't in it, there's something wrong with it.
It happens.
Yeah, those should be at the heart of it.
Yeah. And then there's nuances around it that make bourbon so awesome and so amazing. And when you start drinking, you can tell a difference between a Buffalo Trace and a Heaven Hill and a Wild Turkey, and you find all these things that just hit your palate perfectly. But it is very nuanced on some of those changes, some of those differences, and a lot of people can't tell that difference.
We've with a local distillery around here, we were talking to them, and he was like, "I've got stuff that's much older. It'll never get released. It's not good." Yeah. He was just like, "I'm so unhappy with it, but I learned a lot by making that whiskey and the mistakes I made." So it's like, now I'm at where I'm at because of that stuff. But he was like, it turned out bad. It was just bad stock.
It was so funny because it's a craft distillery, and I'm like, yeah, well, just no, craft distilleries don't have 8 to 10 year whiskey. And he's like, I have 10-year-old whiskey, and it's awesome. And he's like,
I went to a distillery in Detroit probably 7 or 8 years ago, and they'd been in, I didn't know it, but they'd been in business for 3 or 4 years. And he was like, yeah, we got 3-year-old whiskey. I'd never heard of a craft distillery having 3-year-old whiskey. That was at least 6 years ago. So.
Right. Yeah. And they make great whiskey now for sure. And they put it out, right? They put it out around 5-6 years or whatever. It's fantastic. But it's so funny to hear. I don't know that you often hear distillers, because at this point, a lot of with the heritage, especially, you go to those heritage distilleries, it's generation and generation and generation. It's passed down, and the recipes passed down, and the knowledge is passed down. But when you go to a craft distillery and they're like, yeah, I made some stuff and it's absolutely fucking horrendous. You know what I mean? It's like, that's kind of funny, because for a fact that the people who start the heritage distilleries also went through some form of growing pain, right? Like that, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're like, dude, I don't know how we cut that batch, but I'm not drinking it. We got to dump it or something.
They figured it out 100 years ago.
I mean, you guys have been to the big ones now, and there's, I'm not saying there's not skill and there's not a lot of knowledge involved there, but the knowledge essentially was put in. The bourbon factories now, they have it down to such a system that it's computer controlled, and they know exactly what the grain percentages should be, and they know exactly what the moisture percentage should be on the corn before they even use it. That you don't have some old guy people always think of when they come to Kentucky, they think it's going to be some old dude in overalls with a piece of straw in his mouth, pulling whiskey out of a still. And that's not what it is. These are chemists and people who are maintaining a system. Yeah. But these craft distillers, they're oftentimes on these little pot stills, and if you don't clean those things right, you cannot produce a drinkable whiskey out of it if you just miss a spot in there or you don't rinse it perfectly. And it's crazy. It's crazy. Quality control when you only have a handful of people is really difficult.
When we went to Bullet, that was the first time that it was like, whoa, like technology made it into whiskey. That was the first time for me. They
implemented everything that they could to make it as automated as possible.
Oh, it's insane. You see like their control room.
Yeah.
And it's just like you just said, I thought
I've only seen control rooms like that in chemical plants.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where I walk in, and I worked in IT, and I walked in, I'm like, I thought we were talking like moonshine and shit. Yeah. Moonshine and oak. That's what we're doing, right? Like
so Jay Cawdor said, okay, you convinced me. I'm on Bourbon Outfitters batch 17, split stave, Bry, or batch 18.
Go Jay.
Which one would you go, Dan?
I have a vote.
I think I'd go 17.
For me, the Bry is one of my favorite. Easily, I'm going to say top 3 Four Gates I've ever had. The Bry is one of the 3 for me.
I like that one a lot.
If you're really big into cognac finishes and you like sweeter whiskey, though, the 18 is sweeter, less spicy. And the nose on the 18 is absolutely insane.
Oh yeah.
Bill Kavanaugh said, just ordered the split stave and toasted barrel. I'm blaming Dan.
Nice.
You're going to enjoy both. So at least when they get there, you're going to be like, you know what? These are fan-fucking-tastic.
So I know you said you like drinking like cask strength bourbon a lot. Do you guys have any plans to ever release a Four Gate not at cask strength?
No.
Okay.
So we could. I literally had this conversation twice in the last 2 days. We could chop maybe 30% of the price of our cost down. We would add 30% water to bring it to 90 proof. Is basically the way that it works. But it would only impact you about $35 at the register. So if you're going to spend $165 on a bottle of whiskey, do you want it to be 90 proof or barrel strength? Even if barrel strength is too hot for you, you can add your water to it and make that barrel last longer. I come from I was a whiskey geek long before I produced whiskey at all or bottled whiskey. And if I'm spending that much, I want the full flavored whiskey.
Sure.
That doesn't mean that I can't want it over an ice cube or want to splash it with water if I think it's a little too hot. But I want to give you that option. And if I put the water in it, you don't have that option anymore. And I don't think we'd sell I don't think we'd sell a single bottle at $165 that we wouldn't sell at $195, to be totally honest with you.
I personally, from a consumer standpoint, from somebody who, I literally bought this in the past 2-3 weeks, right? If this were 90 proof and $50 less, honestly, I would have been like, I don't know, man. Like I'm not 100%. I just am not. Like you said it, Jackie Zykin has said it from Wolf Horser. Aaron from Smoke Wagon has said it. Lots of people in the industry are saying, listen, we leave it this way. 1920, Jackie said 1920 stands up to ice really well. It's 115 proof for a reason, right? Aaron from Smoke Wagon literally was like, we made one of our whiskeys to put ice in. That's the point of it. And it's hot. You put ice in it and it's not hot anymore, right? And there's this idea like, and I know barrel proof is also kind of like the thing, right? Whiskey enthusiasts want
the pinnacle.
At least 110, maybe 120, 30, whatever proof. I do think that it does becomes one of these things where it's like, listen, throw water in it if you want to. Awesome. Great. Cool. Yeah. It's your right. You bought the bottle. Who gives a shit at this point,
I will say I don't care if that barrel proof is 105 or 145. I just want to taste it at its full proof because that's the most flavor you'll ever get. So I want to taste it as full proof no matter what that is, and I'll add water to it if I don't like it. And some of our ryes are only 109, 106, and I love them. I think they're very full flavored and tasty. But we've got that 14 year. It's 144 proof, and it's one of the best. I think it's one of the best whiskeys I've ever had. So.
Question from Andrew Kopta. Do you have a barrel that you like for a, filler or filter? Filler? i.e., good for blending to keep your cost down, but doesn't add too much complexity. You don't have to say what it is.
No,
Like a
we've
go-to
never
barrel,
had
maybe?
anything like that. So
Okay.
so no, we don't really have any filler whiskey. If we did, I'd be afraid to use it as a filler because I guess there probably are other methods to blending. I just kind of do it by feel and taste, and I taste a couple of them independently or three of them, and I think how would they complement each other and at what ratio, and
Okay.
start playing around with that. I don't really know how I would find. It would have to be the most neutral bourbon in the world that really added nothing to the mix, and we would never buy that bourbon to start with. So
You're not
no,
buying
we don't
stuff
have
for a
one.
base. You're buying stuff that you want to blend with specifically.
If maybe someday we'll wind up with some barrels like that out of a batch that we didn't expect, and we'll do something like that with it. I don't know. I can't say what will ever happen, but no, we've never had anything like that, so I wouldn't do it.
Okay, real quick, because there's a super chat. This Kelvin Collaboration 4 is absolutely fucking ridiculous. This is fucking crazy.
What's that?
That's the one that you.
Okay, yeah, I got that right here.
I poured. That's I don't know if it's the finish, it being the bry, and then the finish on top. I don't know what the fuck it is. I'm madly in love with that. 100%. That's like, I don't know. That's gotta be. I said this over and over now, but not every one of the Four Gates is my top 3 Four Gate. That's one of the best Four Gates I've ever had. That's one of the best finished whiskeys I think I've ever had in my life.
The Kelvin Collaboration line, that's the 4th one. And I do have to say on the name that when I talk about Bobby being a label whisperer, Bobby's a big watch guy. And he always owns a Rolex. And the Rolex uses 4 1s for their 4 instead of IV for the Roman numerals.
Okay.
So that's why that's 4 1s. He said, "Do you mind if we do this?" And I said, "You know what? If it's good enough for Rolex, then it sure as shit is good enough for Four Gate."
Seems to work for them. You know what I mean?
I mean, yeah. So anyway, the Kelvin Collaboration lineup has been our probably best received. Any awards, most of the awards we've won has come from that. If anyone's named anything a barrel finished whiskey of the year or their favorite bourbon of the year, it's almost always been one of the Kelvin collaborations. So we're always very careful to make sure that it is a full flavored, dual finish whiskey that we absolutely love. And all 4 of them now have been, just from my standpoint, just my personal opinion, just home runs.
This is, I've had 3 of the Kelvins, and this is easily my favorite Kelvin.
It's wild.
This reminds me of like a really good cigar blend whiskey. That's what it reminds me of.
How soft that rum finish comes in. Yeah. Like I get a lot of the port, and then like I smell more rum, but I taste more port, and then it finishes with that spicy little bit of rum.
That's freaking all that. I don't know. I'm in love with that for sure.
We try to be very careful with that line. We don't want to fuck it up. I guess we can cuss on everyone here's 21. So
right. If they're not, get out. You know what I mean? Yeah. What are you doing? It's too late. And I don't think anybody under 21 gives this much of a shit about whiskey either. So it's okay.
Okay. When we were 21, we could not afford that to drink.
When I was 21, I drank Wild Turkey 101. I was like, that is fire, dude.
When I was 21, I'm not sure the internet existed in this format, and there sure shit wasn't a YouTube. So I wasn't watching anything. I would have had to adjust some rabbit ear antennas and hope that there was a late night show on about it.
Right. Yeah. A little static.
Shit, here in Kentucky, there might have been. I don't know.
Okay, Julie, that's fair. Okay, anybody under 21, Julie, did you read the $10 super chat?
Yeah, he said, Jared Lesher said, I pre-ordered a Bluegrass Trilogy in Nashville and was worried I missed out. Thankful to hear they may not have made it there yet.
Yeah, so they're waiting on the boxes because of the reason that we haven't been able to go down and assemble the boxes yet. If you ordered with the wooden boxes, is because COVID has all of our distributors essentially locked all outsiders out of the warehouses. We just got the okay to schedule a trip to Georgia. We're waiting on Nashville, which we can do Nashville in a day. It's only 3 hours from here, 2.5. So as soon as they give us the okay, we're going down there to build the boxes, and we'll get them out to you as soon as we can. But that's solely because COVID won't let us in the warehouses. We did the Kentucky one, and then we had the resurgence of COVID with Omicron, and they locked everything down as soon as it was done.
Sure.
And part of it is the delay because we have one gentleman out in Washington making these boxes, and he did not get them all done in time. So he did them by state. He did the Kentucky first, which was our biggest order, and then he did Tennessee and then Georgia. So
wow.
So we'll get them to you as quickly as we can. It requires Bobby and I and probably a third person to drive down to Nashville when they give us the green light to do it.
A lot of man hours are going into these.
Yeah.
That's
if the bottles are all wet, it's my sweat and tears.
Mostly tears.
If there's any red, it's because I cut myself on those goddamn boxes. Cardboard ones, not the
money
wooden
in
ones.
one day.
Man, those tape
Wooden
guns
ones are
are light.
beautiful.
I swear to God, my least favorite thing on planet Earth is just taping multiple boxes over and over.
Mhm.
It's one of my least favorite things. And I have filled sample bottles for a period of time and taped boxes for a period of time. And those two things, the fact that you were doing both and now, thank God, are doing basically one of the two.
It was worse because I'd fill these bottles. They're not. We didn't really use these for samples. We used the 100 milliliter clear flat. Then you had to put them. We put them in bubble wrap sleeves, and that's not always easy because the bottles stick to the goddamn sleeves.
Mhm.
And then I would fill the box with that crinkle paper.
Yeah.
To keep them from getting broken more.
Yeah.
And then I would usually have a card typed out, and I would print them here at home that had just a brief introduction, and I'd snip it from the press release on it with a link to the website. And then I would tape them up, and then I had to print out all the labels, and oh my God, don't get me started anymore.
Mhm.
Oh, I feel your whole life. I've like
I hate
done it, and I literally one of the reasons we stopped doing one of the things we used to do is I was like, I can't
Mentally,
do this
It's the
anymore.
worst. It's the worst. If I have to just pack up like a few of them and send out stuff, I can do that. Not a problem. But if I have to spend 2 days, fill the bottles one day, and then do all the packaging the next, you can just shoot me. I'm done.
Right.
I don't know if we talked about what did you do before Four Gate?
Oh yeah.
So I still have a day job
Oh.
for now. Well, I have a day job. I work for a asset management company, and I've been doing finance for 20 something years, since 2000, 2001.
Oh shit.
He does hostile takeovers.
No.
Calling it out.
No, I do spreadsheets. I'm on the back end of that. I started out as a stockbroker, a financial advisor, and got out of that after about 5 or 6 years. And so I've been in finance, but I pretty much split time now between that and Four Gate.
Okay,
Wow.
real quick, because there's no way your employer's watching unless you told them to watch, right? Do you enjoy your day job? Blink 5 times if yes. You know what I mean?
If you can enjoy a day job, then I do enjoy. I enjoy the people I work with.
Yeah, that's fair.
A couple of my best friends absolutely work there. But I much prefer working with Four Gate. It's it's the passion.
Of course.
I would not choose to do what I do in my day job if I didn't have to.
Of course. Right.
And I think my boss has told me the same thing before, and he's been my boss now for 12 years probably. That if I win a lottery tomorrow, I'm not going to keep this job, for God's sake. But I'd keep making whiskey if I won a lottery because it's fun.
Right.
I
Sure.
enjoy
Yeah.
it.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's funny because where what you're referencing was what we obviously. So Sean was a chemist and I worked in IT, and so
Holy smokes!
I didn't put the parentheses on.
Yeah.
I'm in a good mood.
I'm a kind. I don't think
soul
anyone
right
else
now.
but me just caught that.
I'm sure everybody caught it. They're like, "Where's Dan?"
Oh, usually he calls me a chemist.
Usually I put parentheses on the chemist because I just to say he wasn't a chemist.
What
But
do the parentheses mean? Is he was he making meth or something? I mean,
It's like,
is that what
Yeah.
you mean by
Breaking
chemistry?
Bad.
He likes to make it like very ambiguous to what I did, but yeah.
Sean did chemistry things, right, for a chemical company. And I worked in IT,
Math.
and like exactly, not bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sorry, not meth.
Yeah.
The funny thing is it does become one of those things where something else, right, the side thing, whatever that is, Four Gate for you,
Mhm.
Bourbon Junkies for us, whatever. It became one of those things where this is the passion, like you just said. If I win the lottery, which part of my life am I done with? Because part of something that I'm doing right now, I'm not going to do anymore, right? I have $1 kajillion and I don't have to worry about money anymore. So that was the same thing where it was like my job got really toxic and it became one of these things where I'm like, I don't enjoy it. I worked with some of my friends as well. And it was one of those things where it was like, I'm not keeping this job any longer than I have to. Right.
Yeah.
And we made the decision later last year, third or fourth quarter last year, to be like, okay, we don't have to do this anymore. So like, why are we doing it? You know what I mean? And like you said, it was one of those things where the projects that we're working on, the channel, these are the things that we're doing because we enjoyed them. We were doing them when we enjoyed them, when they made zero money and we lost money every year, right?
Yeah.
And so it does become one of those things where you have your passion project there. People call it a hobby, but Four Gate is far more than a hobby at this point, right? So people call it whatever they want, the side thing. And then it is one of those things where you're like, you know what? If I don't have to do the other thing and I could dedicate all my time to this thing, that's like the dream at this point, right?
Yeah.
There's two things I always say about that is be careful when you do that, because you don't want something you love to become something you hate.
Right. It's been about 6 months. And
yeah, I mean, you should know by now whether it's becoming a bear or not. And
right.
You guys, I think you guys are doing it the right way, and you obviously look like you're having fun doing it. So keep on doing it. The other thing is that if you get the opportunity to do something that you love, you will probably never regret it. Assuming that you can make ends meet when you do it. So, sometimes you got to take a leap to be happy, and being happy is important. Making enough money to survive is important, but hating what you do every day will, no matter how much money you make, you'll never be happy.
That's a mental health thing.
That just kill you early. I swear to God, I stay at a job like that for too long. I'm a solid 42 when it ends. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, you got younger? What happened?
It is so much. It's such a freeing feeling that when the thing that you've been working on and the thing that you've put a lot of time, care, passion, thought into, when you can commit and dedicate and send all of your processing power to that instead of this other thing that you're given like a solid 30-40% to because you don't care anymore. You know what I mean? Like when you can switch and you can make that leap, it's like the most incredible feeling in the whole world.
It is. It's kind of scary, but at the same, it's like being on a roller coaster. Like at the very top of that hill, you're just like, oh shit, but you're having the time of your life.
Right. And I also, for me, it's one of those things where you start to realize that you're like, listen, now what I do directly affects me. Whereas before, like, listen, do the servers need to be up at work? Yeah, they do. Are they down? Yep, they are. If I don't fix them, then my boss is mad. I know the bank that I work for needs help, right? Whatever. But I didn't fix it because I wanted to.
Or if you don't show up, someone doesn't get their meth that day.
Right. If he's not in the trailer in the desert, there's no blue crystal anywhere.
Yeah. People start getting upset.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting. There's a balance to it, like you said. If you switch to it and it becomes only a job and you start to hate it, and then it's a bummer, right? But he's kind of like a fake chemist or something like that. So in theory, like if he ever wanted to be a chemist, he could be a chemist. If he tried really hard again and went to way.
You should probably start a distillery then, because that's become a chemist's job.
I told him like 1,000 times, like, dude, can you figure out how to distill things yet? Like this is literally your whole job, and you can't do it. It's like when you like get a dog and you're like, can you sit down? And they're like, nope. You're like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? Like,
did you just compare me to a dog?
I'm a trained dog.
Okay, thank you. I'm basically a rabbit animal, just out in the woods, living my life.
Rabies dog.
Yep.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know.
Rabies.
It is interesting. It's interesting that you guys can manage Four Gate
with two people.
Does your business partner have a day job as well?
No, so he likes to tell the story about the titles. I like to tell the story about when I first decided I wanted to do a whiskey company. I knew I needed a partner, and Bobby was the first guy who came to mind because of his connections with Calvin Cooperage, and because he is just so passionate about whiskey. He's the most passionate guy about Four Gate you'll ever meet. But he had his own company, did consulting, like cost analysis and stuff like that. And I called him up one night, and it was late at night. My wife was pregnant, so she likes to mention how great it was that when she couldn't drink, I decided to start a whiskey company.
Right.
But I called him up late one night, and I said, hey, Bobby, I'm thinking about starting a whiskey company. Here's what I want to do. Do you think Kelvin will want to be involved? And he said, well, I'll give him a call and see what they have to say. And I said, I think I also need a business partner on this. I know you've got a background in all the numbers and everything. And I don't think I'd finish that sentence. And he'd quit his job and was doing it full time. So.
Okay, that's incredible.
It's a little bit of an exaggeration, but he realized early on that this was going to be a full-time job for someone. And since I was busy during the market hours, obviously, he started doing it pretty much full-time. And then within a couple of months, had literally shut down his consulting business and ran with it. And he is the most passionate man you'll ever meet in your life. And he's one of the best relationship builders I've ever met in my life, which has been fantastic for Four Gate. I couldn't have made a better better call on picking a business partner on
Sure.
that because he's awesome. He's a machine.
Anybody that you just call up and go, hey man, I got.
Hey, you want to do this? I've already quit.
Yeah.
He's like,
And he goes, yeah, man. So I knew you were gonna call. I shut it down.
It's like he had the email to his clients keyed up saying, "You're fired. You're fired. You're fired."
Just a macro. We're good.
Amazing.
Shut it down.
Oh, that's incredible. So I'm standing.
No, but it's been great. But yeah, he does it full time, and I do it part time, half time. I guess you would say.
Sure.
So does Dan.
And it's getting. I probably have to make a decision soon because as we expand to more, every time you expand to a state, it's another state you have to travel to pretty regularly to meet with the distributors, and we do events. We're doing the New Orleans Bourbon Festival in Louisiana at the end of the month.
Okay.
So it's getting harder and harder to balance the two.
When you guys come into Michigan, thoughts on that?
Is that a control state?
Kind of. Okay, so we don't have ABC here, but we do have state minimum pricing.
I don't mind the minimum pricing. The ABC states where we don't get paid until it sells on the shelf, the retail shelf.
Oh no, we don't have that.
We'll never go. We probably will never go there.
Yeah, that's
a
that
headache.
Sounds like prohibition to me. We don't have that here.
We still like freedom here. A little
We
bit.
do.
Water.
I do. I'd probably be up there for a golf trip sometime later this year, but not for
Sounds good.
business.
Dan
Let
is
us
an
know.
avid golfer.
Yeah, listen, I'm one of the greatest golfers known to man. You ever heard of Phil?
I've saw one of your videos of you two playing golf.
Oh
and I think it's-
no!
Dude, here's the thing. Now I can outrun a golf cart at full speed.
Do you know what's funny? You named an actual left-handed golfer,
Yeah.
and you're lefty, but you
Golf
play
right-handed.
right-handed.
I don't really play. I like to drive the cart, smoke cigars, drink whiskey.
You're
I'm
like
kinda
the opposite of Phil Mickelson minus the whole political garbage that he
Ability.
got into.
It's
But
just ability.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
he's
I
a righty who
literally-
plays lefty, or a lefty who plays righty.
If you think about it, I'm like a designated cart girl for the crew. I'm pretty.
You hideous.
I'm pretty. Okay, patron questions.
At least you bring cigars, though.
Yeah, lots of them.
Yeah.
We already answered that one. Let's see this one. There was a question that was geared towards hearing you guys talk about you've covered some of this, talking about unique finishing processes, split stave barrels, various cast types. We talked about this a little bit ago when we talked about you basically letting Kelvin kind of show off like what they can do, right? Because I don't know, honestly, outside of you guys, I don't know anybody that's allowed the Cooperage to kind of
Tailor make it.
just kind of be like, hey man, what's different and cool and what do you want to do, right? The idea of the split stave with the wine barrels, I think sounds incredible. Like that sounds absolutely ridiculous and like
Wild.
a crazy whiskey, and it sounds like it could make like one of the coolest whiskeys.
The only downside to that is most wine barrels are French oak, and they're not the same size. They tend to be a little bit bigger.
Yep.
So it requires a lot of work, and they may not want to do that. I don't know.
So in theory,
In
'cause
theory,
unfortunately, I'm not a Cooper, as we all probably know.
no kidding.
All right, so
He
somehow
beat me to it.
somehow you already know I'm not a Cooper. I could have been in a previous life or some shit.
Oh.
So anyways, if you took the stave, this is such a stupid question. The farther I get into this,
Let it go, though. Let it go.
But I've already gotten halfway through it, so
Just put
everybody
it out there. It'll be on the interwebs forever.
Yeah, I've said some way worse stuff. If you took a normal, damn, this question's stupid. If you took a normal oak stave and then you took a wine stave, put it next to it like a hogshead barrel stave, couldn't you just cut the top off and make them all the same size?
You have to take it from.
You know,
either.
I'm not a Cooper either, so I'm not going to be able to answer that for you. I would hope so, but I don't know.
I think.
I feel like they could probably do some magic.
What if? Okay, here. Listen, this is a hunt, Bill. This is the next idea. I literally just came up with it right now, and it's great. We get Kelvin to ship me like 50 staves, right? Some of them are
God.
wine finished. And I'm going to make a barrel out of the 50 of them.
You know what? We'll just take you somewhere.
You're just
and
going to use
be
like
hey,
twine to bind them together, or
Yeah. We can find a metal guy.
I've seen you swing a
somewhere.
hammer and it's frightful. So you're not popping the rings off.
But I'm pretty sure I can cut them all to the same size. And then we
No,
can
you
figure
can't.
the rest out later.
You can do it with a skill saw.
There might be sawdust. We
And
might
it's
have
going to be
we
wild.
might have to-
Well, we have confirmed that you are in fact not a Cooper.
Thank God, too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If that was my
You guys really should next time you come down to Kentucky, let us know and we'll set up a tour of Calvin Cooperage.
Yeah,
You'll be amazed at what these folks do. They are fantastic,
that would be really cool.
and there's some labor involved in that.
So the only
Bending the staves is not an easy thing to do. I don't know if you knew that.
So the only Cooperage stuff we've ever seen, like in person, was at Old Forester.
Yeah.
But we didn't see them actually putting barrels together. We saw the setup that they used to do, but not anybody doing.
We went there at a day that the Cooperage itself wasn't running.
They're shut down.
I bet I've been there 20 times and I've never seen anyone actually coopering, but I've seen them firing the barrels, which is fun.
Oh, so we didn't see that either.
Mm-mm.
We did get to sniff a fired barrel.
Yeah.
Smelled incredible. Smelled ridiculous. But Matt Porter from ADHD Whiskey said, Dan ordering an XXXXL rubber band on Amazon tonight.
Holy smokes.
Okay, so, man, a lot of these were about a Bourbon Junkies Four Gate.
I would love to watch you
build a
barrel. Yeah.
We could make a whole video out of that.
A lot of liability waivers.
It's going to be expensive, and we're going to need some insurance.
Yeah.
Medical insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's what she said. Oh, God, did I say that on camera?
And I'm glad you did.
He's only going to pour like 4, apparently. We get like 2 more pours in him.
Okay. We already went over what the minimum time in the barrel was, 30 days minimum. Kyle McDowell asked, for someone who's never had Four Gate, what would be your description notes for your favorite release? How would you describe your favorite ones?
So batch 17, I think it on the nose. You get a lot of black pepper. There's sweetness because there's some citrus notes from the Indiana component of that. But I get a lot of black pepper on the nose. On the palate, I get baking spices, black pepper, kind of cloves, along with a lot of oak on that. And on the finish, I think those baking spices and the black pepper kind of dominate. Again, we set out to make this a very spicy whiskey, not a harsh one, but spicy. And those are you can taste it and get some deeper tasting notes in that. But I think that would be the overarching theme if you were to ask me.
If you like
black pepper, baking spices, cloves, a little bit of cinnamon.
Yeah. And the toasted notes really shine in the finish on that. You can really taste the French oak.
I think some on the finish you get a little bit of that kind of marshmallow creme brulee kind of flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, now that I'm tasting on this, it might be because this was in my cognac glass, but I can kind of smell a little bit of the sweetness on this.
One of my favorite things is when I what do we have? We have 6 Four Gate bottles sitting right here.
Mm-hmm.
I've not had an unbalanced Four Gate yet. I've not had a spiky one flavor. It hits way too hard. I've not had any of the bottles be like one flavor is overwhelming or just absolutely flattens everything behind it. I think something that's overlooked from a consumer standpoint, because I've 100% overlooked it for a really long time, is the balancing when you're blending, right? I think blending is like this humongously undervalued skill. And I think that's why a lot of blenders are coming to light about like how great they are, right? Mm-hmm. And so, or like people are starting to realize how great they are, I guess is a better way to put that. But
the products that
because when you get, everybody in this chat has had spiky whiskey before. Everybody's had a whiskey where one note was the flavor profile that for that whiskey was vanilla, the flavor profile for that was leather, the flavor profile of that was caramel, whatever. But the fact that you guys are blending, these are all blended products, except there's one single barrel here. The rest of them are blended products, and all of them except the rye over there is also a finished product on top of it being blended. And there's no spiky or hyper standout notes in any of them. Like, I think that's impressive as hell.
So a lot of the techniques that we use are geared towards that. We use rum as a secondary finish on a lot of things, and rum. One of the great things that rum does is it kind of coats your mouth and it extends the finish, the sweetness of the finish. So it helps to kind of smooth out anything that does. If you wind up with a whiskey or a blend, for example, our very first batch, it was 11.5-year-old Kentucky straight bourbon. It was A+ bourbon until you get to the back palate and the finish, and it just dropped off. It just died. But up until then, it was fantastic. But we use these sherry rum casks, and the rum component of that just coats the mouth and extended the finish. So it's almost cheating sometimes when you figure out some things like dark rum as a finish can smooth out a blend of bourbon. If there's something that's a little too strong, too sharp, too prominent. It just kind of smooths it out. It coats your mouth and blends everything together pretty well. And then you add other things in there like the sherry finish or a port finish or a cognac or something like that. And they just play off each other. If you do it correctly, it plays off each other. They play off each other very well. They help kind of round out the experience, which is what we really like.
So you said it's kind of like cheating, but I would look at that as a skill to know that you could do that to change the whiskey to improve the overall.
Yeah. We didn't know when we started. We did a lot of different ways of experimenting. We had a lot of, we would take staves of wood and soak them, or I would soak them in different types of spirits and see how they would affect a jug of whiskey. And it's once you learn it though, and you learn, and we've used more than one, rum barrels from more than one distillery, and some of them work better than others. So we've kind of learned which ones we really like, and we're going back to those when we can over and over.
Have you guys ever used like smaller barrels?
No, we haven't. We're working on getting some 25-gallon honey barrels that are being used to age honey right now. But we haven't used anything small yet. In fact, a lot of the stuff we've used are huge, 59 gallons and bigger, cognac butts especially.
Oh, yeah.
Our batch 6 that was cognac and dark rum finish were hilarious because we had these 3 giant cognac butts, and they were 5.5 feet high. And they were so old, they were probably 50, 60 years old. When we aged them with our last bottler, they aged them upright, palletized when we were doing secondary aging. And these things had never been dry before because they'd always been on their side wherever they was before. So we had them upright, and instantly the tops warped. So some of the staves went down and some went up. And I remember going in about a month after we'd started aging these, and I could see a gap, and I just stuck my hand in until it hit whiskey. And I said, well, that's a new one on me. So we had to wrap it with plastic and try to seal it. So the tops on all those warped and disintegrated, so we could never use them again. They'd been wet for 50 years. And
that makes so much sense.
For what?
Yeah.
So for a lot of the picks we do, we've been trying to, and sometimes we do, sometimes we don't, but we try to get the barrel heads off the barrel that we did the pick from, right? Mm-hmm. So that we're eventually going to have a new space or whatever someday. And so one of the things that'd be cool is to like have a wall of all the barrel picks we've done with all the barrel heads and stuff, right?
Oh, you're talking that one.
Yeah. So we did a pick with Mythology, which is a small distillery in Colorado. And Mythology's pick program was run very similar to High West, where basically like the double rye stuff, all of it's finished, right?
Right.
Mythology, we did it was a rum barrel finish pick, and they sent us the barrel head, and it is warped.
I've not seen anything like that.
It's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life.
There's an S all the way through it.
It's wild.
My guess is that at some point it was stored upright, and when you do that, obviously,
dry it out.
When it's on its side, you have whiskey, and when you put it upright, it doesn't touch that top one. That would be my guess, but again, that's not my expertise. You'd have to ask somebody who runs a warehouse to really.
Sure. I used to be a cooper, so I should know, but unfortunately. So Alec did say, how much bad whiskey do you drink before you get to a winner? So I guess to expand on that thought, how often do you taste different things to see if they're ready or prepared? Or...
Weekly, monthly? Like, do you have a regimen?
We try to get them either weekly or every 2 weeks, depending on how long they've been in the barrel. The longer they've been in the barrel, the more frequently we try to taste them.
Okay. That's fair.
Yeah.
How do you guys, and I don't know, you don't have to share this if you don't want to. Do you guys have like a shit ton of barrels sitting right now finishing, or is that like 100 barrels, or is that
you want to put a metric on shit ton?
No, it would be under 100.
Okay.
We have some batches that are still have yet to be bottled and haven't been tanked yet.
Okay.
So we have some of those, but they're, our batches, when we talk about doing a big batch, we're talking about 10 finished barrels, and that's a pretty big batch for us. So no, we don't have a ton of finished. At any given time, we might have a couple of tanks, 350 or 550 gallons of a batch that's ready to go, and we just haven't come to a bottling date yet.
Okay.
So we might have one or two of those at any given time.
How long do you guys vat for, like on average?
Once it's been agitated, it's just until we're ready to bottle it, really.
Okay.
And that's dependent on the bottler, when we have an open time for us to get in and take a day for them to bottle 3-4 batches at a time.
Okay.
Justin Jonas said, I've never purchased a Four Gate before until just now. Batch 18 on its way. Cheers. Looking forward to it. Dude, it's a real good one.
Thanks for super
Good job, Justin. We appreciate it.
It smells ridiculous.
And then Chris, he said, what other sites other than Seal Box have it? And you can go to Bourbon Outfitters.
Yep,
Bourbon Outfitter and Casters.com.
Yep.
And it is one of these things, guys. Obviously, chat. Realistically, we're being real here. Bourbon Outfitters is our people.
It's our guy.
It's our site.
Yep.
Ryan Elva is our guy. So for us personally, Bourbon Outfitters is, we don't. It's not a sponsorship or anything. We run all of every pick we do. We run through Bourbon Outfitters. And I mean, Ryan Elva has been in this community for 3 damn years now, and he runs Bourbon Outfitters basically. So if it's on Bourbon Outfitters, I think we're our people.
Yep.
So,
You get the bottle, $15 shipping. You get another one. Only
$20.
has $5. Now it's $20 shipping.
We like both Blake's and Bourbon Outfitter, and Bourbon Outfitter, Blake being Seal Box. Bourbon Outfitter is the same as same owners as Justin's House of Bourbon. So when folks like you guys come to Louisville, if we're ever hosting you guys, we generally will use the speakeasy at Justin's House of Bourbon. We keep a couple of lockers in there of our whiskey, either that or it's either my house or Bobby's house, and we just hang out there and taste our stuff. But we love Bourbon Outfitter. Great guys. The Justins are awesome.
Yeah,
The
Justins that actually recently started talking to the Justins. The Justins are great. Ryan's been our guy for so damn long now. It's crazy. And Ryan is one of the hardest workers I've ever met in my life. So when we do our pick, it will be run through Bourbon Outfitters for chat's sake. So ADHD Whiskey said Bourbon Outfitters or go pack sand, right, Sean?
Yeah.
So Sean doesn't know how sayings work, and he says pack sand when he gets mad.
You get about 90% of it, and then the rest you just make up. So.
The rest is Stag Jr.
Yeah.
Some shit,
you just free ball it, and then you get that.
Yep. But yeah, I think I've exhausted every Patreon question. I've exhausted every question I had that I had thought through, and I did ask. Realistically, I asked one really stupid one, which is about the Cooperage.
Just one?
Outside of that really stupid one,
you did well tonight, bud.
I feel like I didn't ask too many stupid ones, but
the one you guys didn't ask that everyone always asks is where the hell did the name Four Gate come from?
I mean,
hey, where did Four Gate come from?
I kind of feel like we got it now.
I literally had somebody yesterday say I went to your website and searched every page on your website and could not find an explanation of the name, and now I've realized that I have to go build a damn page on my website. So it's a slang term for the four rail fence. That's those fences around all the horse farms in central Kentucky.
Oh,
and you can kind of see it on the bottle. There's one that's superimposed around the front, and then if you look real closely at the bottle, there's a watermark of one behind the type and style. And if you rotate the bottle, it continues on to the back, and it's at the exact same level. Mm-hmm. So we're very particular about our labeling and bottling, which is why we never allow anyone to hand label our stuff. So it has to be it's down to like the thousandth of an inch where the labels are on the bottle. We're very particular, and we make them throw bottles away and take them off and start over when they don't match up.
That's super interesting. Wow, that's super crazy.
So when we're there, when they're bottling, sometimes we can miss some if we go out to lunch or something like that. But by and large, that Four Gate fence needs to line up perfectly from back and front.
That is wild to think of. Like, okay, you know what's funny? Sean and I do this all the time. So what's funny to me is that's something that you guys know that almost nobody else knows, right? Or let's pretend it was 4 millimeters off, right? Mm-hmm. Sean and I never noticed. We look at this bottle, we drink whiskey out of it, we drink the whole bottle, whatever. We never notice it. You guys notice it, right? Because you're paying attention to it. Sean will edit something and be like, dude, color correction on this angle is a little bit off. And we have this conversation constantly where it's like, you and I will be the only two that will ever say anything about it, will ever or notice it or anything, because we're the only two paying attention to that minute detail, right?
But that stuff matters.
For ours, it'll never make a difference. But for you guys, I've said this to other folks who do YouTube and videos too, that you won't notice a specific color correction. Mm-hmm. But what people will notice is that they'll say, hey, the Bourbon Junkies have pretty good cinematography. Sure. Their videos are very high quality. And you only get that by paying attention to those little details. And it may not be that one in particular, but it's a culmination of a million little tiny things that no one notices. But the end product is great. And people, you can have great content, but if it looks bad or sounds bad, no one's gonna fucking watch you.
Dude,
Yeah.
and sound is
So many people ask us, they're like, oh, like I'm
sound's a
trying to start,
nightmare.
like, what do I need? And it was like,
I think I actually have the same mic you guys do over here
oh yeah,
that I haven't used in like a year or something like that. But
audio
But
is like one of the biggest
that's-
things you can put money into.
That's the first.
breaking another monitor over here, bring that in.
That's the first thing is always like find a microphone and then put it as close to your mouth as physically possible. Because like the shotgun mics you set on top of a camera and that camera's 6 feet away from you sounds like shit 6
And
feet
it
away from you.
echoes.
But if you put it like right behind the bottle that you're reviewing, it comes to find out it sounds actually pretty damn good. And people like that seem to be one of the, mind you, all of the quality of our content used to be absolutely horrendous and
We thought it was
unwatchable.
great.
I don't know if we thought it was great, but we were trying at least. That's
Yeah.
what I'll say.
Yeah.
Um,
Rose-colored glasses.
it is unfortunately right now what we have is two different camera bodies from the same family but different generations for different angles
Mhm.
with different glass on the front of the camera, so it's like literally impossible to replicate the color correction on both cameras. It's not really silly
Mind-numbing.
doable.
I'm kind of a camera and microphone junkie. I don't know why I am. I just am.
Sure.
But
Why not?
so yeah, I love it. So you guys should someday do just like a video that just talks about the equipment you use.
I'll write that down.
We
actually.
should
All
be.
the, all the
Yes.
other audio
Yeah.
AV junkies out there will love it.
Holy shit.
That's a good idea, actually.
It all comes from playing music for years and stuff like that. I'm a kind of a gearhead on whatever I'm into.
Sure.
So
Well, it's an email that we get,
A lot.
I'd say at least semi often. That's like, hey man, if I wanted to start, what would I buy and how much money should I, whatever. That's you want to come up with content for our channel? Well, on the fourth side of things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
that's probably breaking the third or fourth wall. I don't know what it is. We're talking
we're
about your equipment.
allowed to do that. We don't
Yeah.
really have rules,
We
which
looked
is
at the
great.
camera.
Yeah.
So for the people in here, we're going to shut it down here in a few minutes.
Mhm.
For the people in here, I believe there are Four Gates on websites right now.
Obviously, there's some on Bourbon Outfitters because people have definitely checked out tonight.
Bourbon Outfitters ships to 47 states. They ship to everywhere except Tennessee, Massachusetts, and Virginia
We
right
just
now.
lost Virginia. Sorry.
So if you live in those states and you are interested, I believe that the Cognac, which is the 18, and the 17, which is the Bry, are both up on Bourbon Outfitters.
What's the release date on the 19?
19 should be April. We call it our Derby batch. So it comes out about 3 weeks before the Kentucky Derby. So
Okay,
it'll be
there you
early April.
And
Just a few weeks from now.
real big fan of the 19 right now.
Yeah, I 1000%. If I'm buying two Four Gates right now, these are both Bry's. So I feel like it's really biased because I really like
If I had not told you that 19 was a Bry, would you still have loved it?
On
Yeah.
the flavor profile, yeah, 100%. Sean actually had me smell it before you said that. It smells absolutely freaking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then I read the back and also found it. The flavor profile on that, or on, I think it's this one.
If you can go back in time
Yeah, the
and
19.
get the Bourbon Outfitters 4-gate, that one I would recommend because I had that tonight.
Somebody said that somebody was considering it, so it
Oh.
might still be up on
It's
the
still
site.
there. That I would do I'd wait for the 19 and I would do the Bourbon Outfitters because that is fantastic.
The Bry for me is just a monster. Dave did ask if Four Gate will come to Massachusetts. I have no idea if that's an ABC state or not.
If it's not an ABC state, we'll probably eventually get there. If it is ABC, it'll be the last. We might actually do exports before we go to an ABC state.
Okay.
It's that restrictive from our standpoint, and you take a risk because you could outlay a lot of money to never get paid.
And just be on the hook for it. Yeah.
Just be on the hook for it forever. And that's hard to account for when it comes to the end of the year and you're trying to file taxes for your partners and investors. And they say,
Where
why?
is this $30,000? Virginia. Sorry.
And it's in there somewhere.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's hiding on a shelf that they like hid it behind a bunch of other shit on.
So, but yeah,
Okay.
I can't tell you when we'll come to most states. I know that will be Illinois April 1st when our distributor is launching in Illinois in April. They formed a new partnership there through Heritage Wine Cellars. And then we'll go to Colorado next. And then we've been talking to them about Florida and probably a South Carolina or somewhere out there, maybe Virginia, actually, If it's not ABC, that might have been one of them. And then they've mentioned California a couple of times. God help me, that's like going to Texas again. So,
So the good news is, Chrissy's in chat, and she said, "Bill, I have a big car. We can sell it out of my trunk in Michigan." So if you're a door-to-door salesman, this is the chat that you're looking for. So, but all right. Well, was there anything else you wanted to talk about? Any projects? Anything? You had mentioned the more consistent blending project coming up.
Yeah. So we'll have a kind of a flagship, I guess you would call it, or just a standard release that we'll have out. That split stay. We'll start with the bourbon, and then we'll do a rye probably a year later, maybe 2 years. It just depends on demand and what we have available. And then we may do a sherry rum finish regular release as well. That it'll just be available year round to distributors to sell to folks. We've got a 14-year-old Indiana bourbon coming out, cast strength, unfinished. It's fantastic. It's only going to be released at one location in Louisville because there's only 100 bottles roughly. But if you can get a hold of one of those, we have a Facebook group. I think it's called Four Gate Whiskey Community, and we'll announce where it's going to be and maybe a press release or something like that. And then there's also going to be a 10-year Indiana bourbon unfinished called Indiana Foundation. So they're fantastic. They're both fantastic. The 14-year-old is just amazing. But we also have one coming out called 4x4, which is just finished in Barbadian rum casks. These are very different rum casks than the first time we tried it, and it's phenomenal. You'll love it. I love it, and I don't generally like just rum only finished bourbons.
Sure.
So that'll be 20.
Okay. Well, 18 is out right now on websites. I'm sure in stores you can find a couple different batches, but on websites you can definitely find 17, 18 right now. 19's coming out here pretty soon. And and there's picks. And there's more picks coming this year from the sounds of it. I know we're doing one.
Maybe else, who knows?
I'm sure a handful of other people are doing picks, and picks are freaking awesome. So thank you for being on, buddy. I appreciate you.
Thank you so
spending
much.
Your evening with
Thanks
us.
for having me. It's a blast.
I know it's late, so I appreciate it.
Now I have to go up and apologize to my wife for waking her up and staying up late.
Do that every Tuesday.
Tell her all you have to do is completely blame us and tell her we're complete idiots. We have no idea what we're talking about, and you'll never talk to us again. And then it just seems to work out that way. You know what I mean?
Trust me, that's my plan.
Well, thank you for being on, buddy.
Why were you up so late? Well, these guys were idiots. So
why'd you stay on? I don't know.
She's like their chat
going. Yeah.
Their chat says they are too. So it's not even me. It's them.
I just kept pouring more whiskey. I just kept drinking it.
I had to deal with them.
You know it's the only way I could do it.
All right, buddy.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for being on.
Thank you all.
In chat, I'm sure Cheech is going live here pretty soon after this. So if you guys want to go hang out on Whiskey Encore, if he's going live, do that. I'm sorry. I know we missed a handful of super chats tonight.
Sorry, guys.
If we did, I'm sorry. You missed one of Zach's, and Zach's really mad at you now.
Yeah, it was about Elden Rings.
Independent Joe, I think, super chatted and said, check out Bourbon. And I believe Bourbon was in chat earlier. I'm 100% sure I saw Bourbon talking pretty recently.
He said no Four Gate in New York. I did see him say that.
Okay. So, if you guys, thank you for hanging out. Appreciate the hell out of you guys. Go check out Bourbon Outfitters. They have Four Gate right now. If you want some, they have a pick, a Bry, and the 19, which is a cognac finish. If you like cognac, it tastes it's fan freaking tastic. So thank you guys. Appreciate you being here.
Yep. Thank
Cheers.
you guys.
Cheers.